We'll
Yeah, let's
go.
do it.
We'll go rock. All
Sounds
right.
good.
We're clicking the go button here, so hopefully. Oh, all right. Cool. We are live and direct, guys. Hello. How's it going? Welcome to Audio Addiction. We have a special guest with us tonight. Very excited to have him back on the channel. We were just talking about how long it's been. So anyway, he can introduce himself, and obviously the band's Wither Away if you didn't, put the two and two
Hey.
together.
Yep, I'm JJ, vocalist of Witherway. And yeah, happy to be here. Actually, it's been long overdue. It's almost how many? It was a year and 3 months since we
Wow.
released this. Which
Oh
it
man.
feels which it like I said, it feels like we just released it. And anyone that's, watching this, I apologize that we haven't done this sooner. So
It's all right. You know what I always say? It's always better late than never. And I think certainly within, the confines of this music, it's difficult. And we were like talking about it off camera a little bit. It's just, I know JJ was trying to get this done a little bit sooner rather than later, certainly, but I think it's tough because I think a lot of the bands that release stuff like early on within 2020 or like in 2021, like especially I would say more so 2020, it was just rough. And
hmm
honestly, I don't think I told JJ this. I had put these guys as I think my favorite underground band that isn't signed yet that should be signed, because I love this record. This is probably the only time that I have actually listened to the record multiple times and
awesome.
had them on. Usually it's just like I go in blind and I just listen to it, but this time around I had been listening to this album pretty much since it came out, and then now I've just been kind of jamming it here and there just cuz I love the trajectory of this album, and I'm excited for obviously new material when that comes around. But I was real stoked. So when I asked JJ, I was like, "Yo, man, can you come back on the channel? Can we do this?" Like, I kind of wanted to know like all the details, all the fun stuff involved with this record, and who better to ask than JJ? So, thank you for coming on. Thank you for doing this. So I appreciate
Thanks for
it.
having me.
Um, when because I know you guys released this in 2020, and we talked about it's like roughly about a year and a handful of months. Um, how has the reception been? Because usually a lot of times when I have people on, it's like the album has come out within a couple months of that time frame. How has the reception been? Because I feel like personally I haven't seen it get a lot of love, and that's not necessarily maybe it's just runs in different circles, but I absolutely love this record, and I try to do my best to be like, check this out, you need to check this out. And so how do you feel as being like in the band? How do you feel like the reception has been with the new record?
So it's I'll like answer this like two ways because I'll explain why. Um, the reception for people that have heard it have loved it, and like it's been great. Like we've had like a lot of people be like, this is my favorite record. This is even better than the last, and like that's always like the concern when you're releasing new music. You're anxious. You're like, okay, is this going to be as good as what I did prior?
Sure, yeah.
Is it going to be worse? Like, and like if you're proud of it and it's not good, then you're like, what do I do to improve it?
Yeah.
The problem with this was kind of like what we were saying off camera is I think a lot of us were exhausted at the end of this because we started
Sure.
the process for this. Um, I think it was starting at the end of 2018. Um,
Wow.
and like started writing things, a lot of shakeups, a lot of things that
Sure,
happened.
yeah.
And then when we started really digging into it, it was like probably mid 2019, and then COVID hit, and then things slowed down. And then we were working through COVID, being like, okay, it was in the beginning, it was like pretty scary stuff,
Sure,
and
yeah,
like, I
yeah,
mean,
yeah.
I mean, obviously still scary, but we didn't know a lot about it at the time, and it was one of those things that by the end of it, we were like, oh my gosh, this was exhausting, and we didn't put the same energy that we did through that whole time
Mm-hmm.
into getting it into people's ears. And that was kind of, you know but on the flip side, we're starting to get more of a starting to incline. We're starting to see, more people are starting to listen to it and be like, how did I miss this? And
Yeah.
our monthly listeners are going up, and like, um, we're making sure to really reserve our energy, for making sure we release new music. Take it slow, take it
Mhm.
easy,
Mhm.
and make sure that we give the proper amount of attention to uh, the promotion side of it. So we're hoping that with what we have like coming out next, that pushes people into, hey, I never heard of this band. Oh my goodness, they have 20 songs
Yeah, yeah,
released. Let me go back through the discography.
yeah. And I think that kind of goes with like, what you were saying earlier about you're like, oh my god, like I can't believe like this album was released. Like, how did I miss it? And that's kind of how I felt with like most people I talked to, sent it to, or was like, hey, you should need to check this out. And they're like, man, I didn't know they released a new record and like all this sort of stuff. And I was just surprised because, like I said, I would agree with a lot of people that also said like I think it's your best work to date. I would 1,000% agree with it. The repeat value on it is just, I mean, I was probably listening to this album at least like once a week for probably a
Oh,
couple
awesome.
months, and then more currently I was like it came back into the rotation again because I've been really loving, and I've always loved them for a while, but like Holding Absence, and I feel like you guys kind of are on the same like parallel a little bit. And I was like, man, I forgot how good this Wither Way album is. I'll listen to it again, and I would just go through and listen to the entire thing like on my
That's
drive
awesome.
to work or whatever. And I'm like, man, I don't see it hardly really anyone posting about it. And if anything, I hope that this video gives people a better idea of like the album and the process and stuff. And honestly, guys, check the links in the description so you can go buy it, or stream it, or however you listen to music, because um like JJ said, I feel like it flew under a lot of people's radar in regards to like, oh my god, I can't believe Wither Ways released a record, and I like completely forgot about. So here's your chance to not only listen to it in the moment right now, but also to go purchase it or stream it more, because it's definitely like, I think I had put it in my albums of the year last year for sure. And
Oh,
then
awesome.
I did say in like the separate video, shouts to my friend George, who also runs a podcast, and I was telling him, I was like, this band is like a band that everybody needs to keep an eye out for. And I mean, I've been wrong before, but I hope that fingers crossed, I hope I'm not wrong about this one.
We've been a band for at least, oh dude, it's nuts. We've been a full band since 2016, but we've been a band since 2015, which is crazy. I think it's 7 years. And like, um obviously we're not going away, but the one thing we're not doing moving forward from this is we're not like having a 4 year gap between music, because
Yeah.
that kills you. It kills you.
Well,
So
and then
like,
I feel like it wasn't. I mean, I will give you the credit. It's like no one expected what the pandemic was gonna be, certainly. So, I mean, I think it's like, I feel like I kind of give bands like a little leeway if they did wind up releasing an album in the pandemic, or like roughly thereafter, just because I think, and I know I had mentioned it in like a couple different interviews, is like there's so much music out there, right? And so
mhm.
it's so difficult to be like, oh my god, I've listened to everything. Like, I don't think that I'll be able to live long enough to listen to everything. And I think with finding these artists and stuff, and obviously you guys being on the channel for as long time, people on the channel, I was just like, man, like this needs to be talked about. So I'm glad, like I said, I'm glad we were able to work this out and stuff like that. And
Same.
then you guys worked with Ricky.
Yep.
Did you work with Ricky on the previous record as well, or was that
We've worked with Ricky since the beginning. Yeah.
okay?
So like, it's kind of cool to see how everything's gone, because like, we worked on Sentiment, which is our first single we
Yes,
did
yeah,
back
yeah.
in 2015, October, I think. And we worked with him, and that was like right when he was getting his feet wet to um, production and stuff. So we've been like with him since kind of the beginning. I mean, he might have, I don't know. I think he's done stuff prior to that, but like it was pretty early on. So it was
Mhm.
really, it's really cool to see like how far he's come.
Oh,
And you know, we've
100%.
grown together. Yeah.
And that's awesome. Like, and I gotta give a massive shout out to Ricky because it's great, and obviously people should know, or if they don't, I'm not gonna spoil it because there may be a little teensy surprise on the record that people who are familiar with Ricky and stuff like that might hear a familiar voice on a particular track that we will discuss. But we will get into it. Again, guys, check the links below. We're going to listen to the entire record. We're going to go track by track. So we're going to go through lyrics, the demos, all that stuff. So, this is going to be a long one, but very excited. JJ, hopefully the volume isn't too loud. That was the one thing we didn't check on the sound here. So if it does come out too loud, let me know. I can tweak it. But the first song off of I Won't Find Hope in You is called April, Spring is Coming. We are going to listen to it after we'll talk about the origins of the song and things of that nature. So, guys, get ready in 3, 2, 1. Is it good, Ricky? Is it good? Good, JJ? Okay. All right, guys. I love that ending.
Yeah.
I gotta mention that. That's like one of the coolest. I was like, oh, that's so great. They included like the real like studio. I love when bands do that. That's a great thing. But
Yeah, Ricky's like, well, we'll keep it in.
anyway, guys, if you're just tuning in, this is the first track. April, Spring is Coming, off of Wither Away's newest record. I Won't Find Hope in You. Came out last year, but we love it here. So gotta give it the spotlight. But this is like I loved. I don't think I had listened to any of the singles. I know that there was quite a few. That shout outs to Dreambound. I know they released a couple of music videos. But this was like this is the one album that I feel like is just so consistent from front to back. And just to start off with this song, it's so like melodic. It's so open. I love the kind of like swing it has. And then that bridge is so good. Like every time that bridge kicks in, man, it's so like ethereal and really like melodic. And it's anything like when I think of Wither Away, I'm like, this is up there as like one of my top songs on the
Oh,
record.
that's awesome.
But in regards to like how the song started out, JJ, on the record, did the like pre-pro or like the demo song kind of sound similar to this, or was there like a lot of tweaking involved with arranging the song the way it did?
So the demo song was pretty like the like the
Yeah,
beginning,
yeah.
like the guitar part and everything. That stayed the same. It was about 2 minutes. Like the thing is, this is where we struggle a lot in the time period is like we'd get like 2 minutes and be like, is this something we like? It'd be like 70-80%, but I really like this part. This is like I still go back and actually listen to the pre-pros regularly because I'm just like I love to hear the similarities,
Sure,
or the differences.
Yeah.
But yeah, that one, I would say, when we were approaching this song, I was like, I want this to be the first song on the record, and it's funny because like I don't remember telling Ricky this, but like listening to that again now, I really liked the way that Chica came out like on the EP, where it was very similar. And like listening to it now, it's a very similar like arrangement song, different songs,
Sure,
but
sure,
like
sure.
how it goes and calls back to the same beginning part, but it's more like the ethereal, like what you were saying. Like I love the way that hits, and it's like it's a very like it's not like it's not sad sounding song. I don't know. It's like it's hard when you're
Yeah.
the when you write the music because you get a completely different
Sure.
opinion
Yeah.
of how it sounds, but like it's like upbeat but sad at the same time. I
Yeah,
love
yeah.
I like the way when it's like like the whole like kind of like encouraging everyone else at the end of the song. I love that. And it's funny listening to it, I'm like, man, I want to play this live, but like what you're saying is everyone in the band has a different favorite song, which is great. Which is great.
That's awesome.
But it's also stressful because when we're building the live set, we're like, okay, can we play? How long can we play?
Yeah.
Like I said, we have a discography of 20 songs, and we like the majority of them. So it's like, it's really difficult, it's a good problem, I guess, to have.
Yeah. No, certainly. And is this? I mean, have you guys played this one live, or you haven't?
We did.
Okay,
We
very
played
cool.
it. Our first, it was end of 2021. We played our first show back in
Oh,
Harrisburg.
so sick. Oh.
And it was a little rough just because of some technical difficulties, but it was awesome. We had so many people come out, and like it was a great experience. We played this song, and it was a lot of fun.
That's awesome.
I think we opened with it, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. I feel like this song, like you said, I'm glad you guys put this at the front. I'm glad that was kind of on the decision like making block here, because I do think it does set the tone for the rest of the record. And I'm old as shit, so like for me, I love like when an album is structured super well. And for me, that was like, if this song wasn't like at least in the thought process of being first, I'd be a little bit surprised, just because it has this real, like, again, like real open, ethereal. I love the kind of dichotomy of like what you said, where it's like happy and sad at the same time. Like some of the like melodic lines that like you're using are very like kind of like major minor. And I'm like, okay, like I could tell you were trying to kind of like like do that give and take where it's like, okay, the song is kind of sad, but it's also kind of happy. It could be, derived in two different ways, and that was really cool. So I got to give you guys credit because
Awesome.
this again one of I would argue like usually my gut reaction is like not the first track, that can't be your favorite, but it's close. It's close. It's definitely up there. I think this one is like arguably, there's 10 songs. I'd say arguably top 5 for sure. Like,
And this was, I think, okay, so I'll confuse you. This was track 9, but we had up to track 12, I believe.
oh
But
wow.
but we got rid of 2 songs that we weren't really a fan of. So this was like like to the end. So it was interesting to see like how certain things changed as I mean,
Yeah.
every time, like, I mean, granted, each song was different, but it like that's like the best thing about releasing music is obviously like writing and releasing music. It's like, you release the one song, and like if you go into the studio next time and you're not as excited as you were to get the thing back after you got that one, like
Sure.
I would be concerned about your track. But like when we were in there, we're like, oh, this is awesome, this is awesome. Now granted, we pieced together some songs, so like we'd work on some parts of songs and then move away. Once we got some things together, we were good to go. But like in the beginning stage, that's when it was really rough.
Oh, I'm
Yeah.
sure. I'm sure. Well, I'm like I said, I'm glad it made it onto the record because honestly, it's a great opener, and again, it ties the entire record together. So, I really like kind of because I do feel like there are a lot of ethereal elements, and this is like I feel like this song is probably the most where it's like at the forefront, and but I do like that there's just kind of songs that are just sprinkled throughout there that have just like those little bits of like etherealness that
Yeah.
that make its way into songs, and like I said, it just ties everything together, so I really enjoy that. But next thing that I have to ask you about the song, JJ, lyrically, like where does this derive from? And then even maybe the song title, because I feel like there's some meaning behind the song title itself too. So if you can divulge, those things, that'd be awesome.
So, when I like I'll like give a background real quick. When I approach like writing a song, like writing lyrics, it
Mm-hmm.
typically starts in the form of like poetry or something inspired me. And obviously, a lot of things that inspire me are like manga and anime, and like
Yes.
entertainment stuff. So this either I write this, we write the song, and the lyrics are, you know, um, specific to me or specific to a certain instance,
Sure.
or I'm like, I want to write about this anime, but I want to do it in a way that it's very generic. So this was one of those situations where, and a lot of the songs tie back to like depression and apathy,
Sure. Sure.
and
Sure.
like obviously like you know, um, just the thoughts of like you know, would it be easier to not exist? I know it sounds obviously like it's just like suicidal, but it's I think it's good to be very vocal about those things, and like I talk about like I wake up, I do the same thing over again. I say that I'm gonna be better. I'm gonna try to make, because I know that like I'm mindful enough in my life to know that if I do these things, if I exercise, if I eat well, if I go to bed early, that like I have a better chance of not feeling this way. So
Sure.
like that's
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah.
what this song's really about, and also um like the it's the title is, I was like, what, I don't know how I came to this conclusion, but I was really like, I think I was just finishing watching Your Lie in April like the second time, and then
Oh yeah.
also, oh man, that's just like, oh, so a little thing about that is the way we uh opened this song live, which I really want to do that again. But we took a clip from that, and it was that the part where it was like the whole buildup would stop and it would pause, and it was like, "Do you want to kill yourself with me?" And then boom, breaks into the
Oh
thing.
my
It was so good.
gosh,
It
that's
gives me
so.
shivers thinking about it. But yeah, so that's what the title, and also it's a mixed title because it's I love Fruits Basket, and like that whole like saga of like springtime coming and all that.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
forget,
Yeah.
but oh my goodness, I forget the one character. I'm gonna sound like people are gonna criticize me for it, but
I don't think
um,
so.
But yeah, so that's kind of where the title came from, and it mixes in with some of the meaning. But the meaning to me is more like, and just like to set the tone of the record, is a lot of like personal reflection. And I think the way I try to write lyrics, and sometimes I feel like I don't ever want to be cheap in it, but I always try to write lyrics generically so that like you can you can listen to it, they can listen to it, like anyone can listen to it and kind of get something different from it. That
Sure.
maybe when I
Yeah.
originally wrote it, it was for something completely out, like completely different. So, but yeah, apathy is
No.
a big focus on this.
I feel like there's a lot of, well, the fact that it was released in 2020, I think, had a lot to do with why I was, hitting this record pretty heavily. I think a lot of people can resonate with that sort of thought or feelings that a lot of people had felt during that time period, certainly. Um, and so for me, it was kind of like, okay, like this. I'm curious to see what, and I probably honestly could have messaged you about all these things, but I think it's better that it's obviously on the internet and we could talk about it. But, I think I know I had told you earlier, like I had taken some time off, and it was just, I think me mentally, I was just spent, I think doing YouTube for as long as I've been doing it. And I want to let people know I love doing it. It doesn't, loving something and doing it does not dictate whether or not you feel okay.
Yeah, no,
You
completely
can
understand.
put a facade on and say like, oh yeah, this is great, and then meanwhile when the video turns off, like, I could be like, watching a sad movie and crying my eyes out. So like I think that the thing is that like I think that was kind of the reasoning initially of why this record was so drawn to me. But then I think as time went on, I was just listening to it as like, a form of therapy almost, as well as just like musically, it just like hits so well too. I think the way that you guys have been able to, have such strong lyrics plus like the added fact of having like, like an emotional hit when the music comes on. I think that just, to me, that's what kind of differentiates me from a band that like I like to a band that I actually love. And I do, this is not me shilling, but I do actually love your band, and I think that this
Appreciate it,
record
my man.
helped me out a lot. And not only did I want to obviously talk about just the entirety of the record, but I also think it's a good thing to note that like a lot of people do deal with depression, a lot of people do deal with apathy and that sort of stuff, and so I appreciate that. I would argue a lot of the bands within the scene are very much about that, where
Yep.
mental health is a big thing, and I'm glad that you guys are able to talk about it in a way that I would hope is therapeutic for you, but also in a way that again, somebody can relate to it, like I related to it, and I hope that other people you know have that have that opportunity to relate with you as well. So definitely enjoyed that one. I don't know if there's any other special tidbits or things that you remember about this song. If not, we will move on to the next one, but I figured
Oh,
I'd close it out.
we tried filming our own music video, and we spent a few days on that.
What? Didn't work
Didn't
out.
work
Oh
out.
man,
No, unfortunately.
that
And
would have been
that's
cool.
tough. It's tough. Like that was like we were trying to do a lot of stuff DIY,
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
we were thought we'd be capable, but it was like we did it, and then we're like, this sucks. Now my energy and motivation is gone.
Oh no. Well, hopefully with the next ones, I know you guys are cooking up
Oh no,
some new stuff.
stuff's
So,
better. Stuff's better.
but yes, this one again. If you guys just tuned in, April, spring is coming. That's the first track. We're gonna move on to the second track, which is, I'm gonna butcher this. It's a Kagun.
Kagune.
Kagune. I see.
Yeah.
Listen, I don't know shit about this stuff, but Kagune,
No, it's
this has ruined me. This one again, I'm gonna sound like I'm entirely shilling on this entire record. I just want to let you know, I did. People aren't gonna believe me because this is on the internet and we are having this conversation, and they're just gonna think, man, how much money did JJ pay him to say this shit? He has paid me nothing. I have said this is under my own volition. I love this album, so I am going to shill the fuck out of it because I love it. So, this is Kagune, Ruin Me. We're gonna get it started in 3, 2, one.
Won't let this sadness ruin me. I'll pick up my life and I'll find another strive to bear. Will I get the best of me? I'm taking my time and I still have nothing to give. I still have nothing to give. I've been losing my ground when I try to find the pace in my idle hands. I never could stand my apathy. It's never leaving me when I see you and me. I see your family. I'll never back down through all of it, and that's a fact now. I mean it. Will you follow me inside? I know you're scared of what you'll find. I'll give you all of my time because it's true. Love, and it's true. Love, I will find peace of mind. I still have nothing to give. When I look in those eyes, I see the point of life. I can't remind me that I know I'll be alright. Even when I lose sight, I know that I'll find peace in your mind. I couldn't face myself, cause I was drowning and you knew it. I was numb to the pain, I was broken and ashamed. You pulled me out of my darkest days. Will you follow me inside? I know you're scared of what you'll find. I'll give you all of my time because it's true. Love, and it's true. Love, I will find. Let it go and let your aspirations bury what is holding you down. You'll be young and see the grief and pain was about to get you where you are now. Let it go and let your aspirations bury what is holding you down. You'll be young and see the grief and pain was about to get you where you are.
All right, guys. If you just tuned in, this is track number 2. Kagune, Ruin Me. I totally did not butcher it earlier, so. But this is live, so you can go back and probably watch me butcher it. But this is Wither Away's newest album, I Won't Find Hope in You. Links below. Go give it a listen. Go buy it. I'm definitely going to go buy this wall flag as soon as this is over with. So, JJ,
Nice.
my guy, I'm going to put it right here on my wall
Awesome.
here. But anyway, this is a great second track. I love the fact that it's got like just, man, again, the rhythms on this, I got to give a lot to Russell because, man, some of the grooves he's got are just like, they're so clean. So Russell, miss you, love you. Wish you came on here, but it's all right. But I really enjoyed this. This is the first song on the record, if you listen to it front to back, that has screaming in it, which I think is really cool. Obviously, I know you guys do scream, but I think this was the first song that I was like, oh my god, there's great. We got screaming. It's great. It's awesome. We love it. And I just think it's just such a vibe. Like, I love the chorus. I think that one, like, it's so catchy. It definitely drags you in, and then just the screaming in like the bridge and like some of the verses and stuff were just like tastefully put in there. So I really enjoyed this one. Was this one as fun putting together as you remembered it to be?
Yeah, there's songs that were obviously like harder to work on and that like took a lot more time. This was
Sure.
one of those that was quick and really fun to put together. Like the vocal melodies that we thought of. Actually, it was kind of funny. I go into the studio and I sing the vocal melody and like, oh no, and he's like, yeah, I hear it too. He's like, that's the swing swing from American Rejects melody.
Oh my god.
And I was like,
Oh my God.
oh, I didn't even notice that. I was like subconsciously like back in 2003 as I'm playing MVP baseball, and that is the opening theme song, which got me like into. I'm like thinking about that song, and I'm
Oh,
like, oh
yes.
crap. So then I sang like let me try something a little different, and I sang a part, and it was like kind of messed up, but then like did it again, and that was the opening part of that melody, and then we kind of like we completed the rest with what I had prior, but it was yeah, it was funny. That happens a lot to me, and I don't mean to. Like I even like been working on like certain pre-pros now, and I'm like, this song specifically, I'm like, oh crap, that's Kagune, and I'm like tying back to certain melodies. But yeah, I pre-pro a lot of different things when I'm writing, and it's just like I just kind of sing over and figure out. But yeah, this was a lot of fun. It was I just love the opening to it. It has that like, I don't know. It's just like when we read a Wither Away song, we're trying to like we have like different like requirements. If the song doesn't have this, if it doesn't have a cool intro, it's got to have
I got
this.
you. I got you. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It sounds weird, but like we're doing it to like stay fresh and also exciting for ourselves, because like back in the day, like everyone with metal, because we all played metal bands back in the day.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Breakdowns were everything. It's like, this song didn't have a breakdown. You were like, when you were like 15, you're like, this song sucks. It could have been a good song, but it's kind of how we see about certain parts. But yeah,
I
this
do
was a
like
lot of fun to
the
make.
I do like the intro a lot, because I think it's just vocal and guitar, right? And then everything
Yeah.
kind of kicks in, and then Russell starts, going wild.
That lead kicks in and goes.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I love that. So awesome.
And I think that's kind of like what gets like the ball rolling, and then as the song kind of just progresses, it's just like the trajectory is just great. So I do love this one a lot too. I think that I realize I just love it from front to back, and that again I'm just gonna be continually shilling on this record, but yeah, it's just got such a great like, and I think even like we mentioned in April, where it's got this kind of like happy sad kind of like dichotomy again, where it's just like you can kind of hear some of the stuff where it's just like, okay, there's like some like happy like chord phrasings going on, and then like when the screaming kicks in, you're like kind of like, okay, well now are we swapping, like is it gonna be like sad, and then we kind of like pick it back up in the chorus, and then just kind of does this like interesting way of like putting the song together, where I don't feel like it's intentionally like where the teetering of like, okay, well this is like gonna sound real happy, this is gonna sound sad, this is gonna sound real happy. It just kind of feels like cohesive, but then there's just definitely moments where it's like, okay, like this has definitely more of a like positive like vibe, and then like counteracted by like, okay, this part has some like screaming in it, so like it's gonna sound a little bit more like dark and stuff. So I don't feel like it's intentional, but the way that I feel like a Wither, like you said, elements of a Wither Away song, that's what I think of now, is just that like happy sad mix of like, okay, like melodically it's like a major minor thing where I'm like, okay, like they're doing this real cool thing, so keep it up. I know obviously it's not intentional, so I imagine it will just be like deep seated in a Wither Away track going further, but and then to follow this up again, JJ, lyric wise, what did you delve into, and then obviously coming up with the title of the song?
Yeah. So similar to the last one, it's more of a personal thing. It's kind of like a call. I don't. It's weird because when I organized them, the call to April, I didn't mean to put like. It's so funny. You'd be like, oh, it's structured so perfectly, and I'm just over here like, man, this goes over here. This goes here. This goes. I'll be honest.
You're like literally ripping the veil away, and I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
well, I guess that's fine too.
No, but I mean, like it was like we listen when we when we released it, we listened to them over and over. And
Oh,
over.
I'm
Like,
sure.
you
Yeah.
know, I think this could go here. I mean, but like, it wasn't like I sat there and was like, no, we're gonna move it around. Like, it wasn't like a strategy, but it was like, this feels good.
This works
Like,
here. Yeah, I got
This
you.
this feels good. Yeah, this feels good. If we had to play this from, and granted, if we played one of the things that I do when I go to the studio, it's like, I try to give 120%, and that is, when we're playing live, I'm like, I don't want to backtrack anything. I don't want to have anything like for vocally. And I realize when I'm writing these parts, I'm like, I did this part, and then this next part literally overlaps and goes in without a breath. I'm like, I'm gonna kill myself. But yeah, so lyrically, yeah. Sorry, I can go off on a tangent, but lyrically, it's like I said, it's like called April basically, and it's it's like the action or the call, yeah, whatever. It's the answer. That's what I'm looking for.
I got you.
Yeah, and it's like a mixture of, like motivating myself that like, no, like kind of back like I'm not gonna let like the sadness and apathy create, and it's like also like it's also kind of a little bit of a love song because from about my wife and everything. So it's like this is there's we are more than that, and like I am more than my sadness, and it's like you help me in a lot of different ways, and I'm happy about it. And then at the end, it's just like kind of like a just to everyone else, like the screaming. It's funny. It's like that's like the most positive part of the song, and it's funny because like I'll like if I try to recite the lyrics, I'm so bad when it comes to like remembering my own lyrics when I'm not performing them.
Yeah, sure.
It's so terrible. I don't know if anyone else like struggles with that, but like I do really like. So it's like the whole like let it go, let your aspirations bury everything that's holding you down. I think be whole, so that you're be whole, and let your goodness. I'm sorry. I'm really bad with it.
Good.
I'm like.
You're gonna
it's
watch
funny,
this
like,
back and be like, "Oh my god, I can't believe I forgot it." Oh man.
Dude, the thing is I it's if I'm like performing live and something sounds different to me, it can throw me off. It's so bad. Like, and I'm
God.
like the muscle memory kind of guy. I practice so much that I don't think about it.
Wow.
And the moment that I think about the lyrics, I'm like, oh no, what were my lyrics? Yeah,
man.
it's bad. But yeah, like, so the ending is like kind of basically to like encourage everyone that like basically don't give up. It's corny, but like kind of how I felt a lot of this. It's like I always tell like my wife this, like I have really bad ADHD, and you can definitely tell that by me jumping all over the place probably. And it's also affects the the way that I handle like depression and sadness.
Sure.
Because one moment like I could be super low, and the next moment I'm like, ooh, piece of candy, and I'm back up and fine. And then next moment I'm down again, and it's like, is it genuine? Like, is this legitimate? Is it genuine? Is it like, and that's like, you ask, like a lot of those lyrics are in this record based on that. It's like, that's why a lot of apathy is there, because it's like, I'm not making changes because I'm not validating that I actually have a problem.
Sure, no, and I think I can find similarities to that because just in my personal life, I've definitely been involved with that sort of personality, people in my life that have been like that, and for me, it was like kind of like I listened to this one and like looked at the lyrics and I was like, oh my god, like this. Obviously it's not from my perspective, but like I can totally understand where some of those puzzle pieces kind of like line up and where they get put together. And I like that the fact that the song starts off like, I won't let the sadness ruin me, and then like obviously comparatively to April, which like you said is very like very call and response sort of a thing, and I like that the way that, again, I know it was very unintentionally how like the songs were put together, but I think that having them back to back, I think it adds a lot more resonance to the way that the lyrics are kind of put together and the way that the stories kind of interweave with each other, where it's like wow, these are together because of this, even though obviously I completely debunked that whole thing, that's not true at all. It's just that they were like, okay, song sounds good here, slot 2, great, beautiful. But I'm still gonna believe the ideology that I was correct and that the songs are just like, perfectly crafted right next to each other.
So I mean, if you look at the album art, and the album art kind of reflects the theme of the song. So it's like, obviously the pagoda is like a hometown thing here. Like, I don't know if we talked about that before.
I don't think so. No.
Like, Reading, PA is like the only place that has like a full-blown legit pagoda on top of a mountain. And like, it's like, it's a very like, so like basically I think there's other pagodas, but back in like World War II, during all that, like, all the anti-Japanese times, they destroyed a lot of them, and they didn't destroy this one. So it's like one of the only ones. I think it is the only one in the U.S. If you type in pagoda in the U.S., you'll find like the Peace Pagoda and stuff in California and stuff. But anyway, regardless, that's kind of like the local thing about it for us. And then also the like, the burning. It's like kind of like the
yeah.
It's like representing like, you're inside, like you destructing kind of a mindset. It's like it's very spiritual and such.
Yeah.
So like that's kind of the whole, the whole premise of the record. So that, writing, going into it, it's like, well, I guess this, they do, a lot of the lyrics do relate.
yeah, certainly. And then I didn't even know about the pagoda thing, but I did like, I kind of assumed a little bit, only because I know like you guys are very much into like Japanese culture, so I thought, oh well, maybe it might have something to do with that, but I did not know about the Reading, PA thing, so that's kind of wild. So I'll have to make my trek to Reading now to go look for that pagoda.
It's pretty cool. Yeah, it's up. I mean, it looks over Reading, so you can like, if you go up there, you can like
see Reading
very high up. Yeah. It's pretty neat. It's lit up at night, so if you're just driving down the highway, you can look and see it up on the mountain. Yeah.
Oh my god. All right. Well, road trip soon. But and then for the song title, Kagune, is there any like, any significant meaning behind that? And
when I think about it now, honestly, I think that song, like the "Ruin Me" part, obviously, like it's a lyric in the song. As I was kind of like reflecting to do this, the track by track, I was like, why did I pick that name? I was like trying to think back exactly. Now, granted, Kagune, it's from Tokyo Ghoul.
It is, like, yeah. Okay, yeah.
So it's like another weeb thing.
Listen.
I'm big and like in that. So like, I like to sprinkle it in here. If it's not like, if the song's not about it, the title is probably going to be about it, or it's going to be about something video game related. So I don't think there's any. I say I don't think because I don't remember if there's any correlation between the actual track. I think that's why the parentheses are there to
remember.
Yeah,
to have you
it was
remember.
almost. I think it was at one point was going to be called "Ruin Me," and I wanted.
Oh wow, yeah, that would. I feel like that. Now that you think about it, now that might make more sense now. But I do like that it's a Tokyo Ghoul reference because there's one song on this record here that I'm very excited to talk about because I did see something on the internet, and again, I don't believe everything on the internet, but I'm gonna hope that the person that put this in the comments was correct, and that I'm not going on some sort of wild tangent. But we'll get to there when we get there. But shout outs to Irv. He said, "Yo, this is good as hell." This was, I think, while we were listening to Kagune, so I hope you stuck around, Irv. Listen to the rest of the record. And then shout outs to Jonathan. He asked the inner turmoil ? And I don't know if he was referring to a comment we made earlier about the pagoda. I don't.
Probably.
So please clarify, Jonathan, in the comment or in the live chat. We'll try to get it answered for you. But we're gonna move on to track number 3, which is Shadow Form. I'm gonna guess, just based off of the title of the name, I'm gonna say it's based off of Kingdom Hearts. But I don't know if that's correct. Oh, I'm not. Okay.
No.
Okay. I thought maybe it was.
I mean, so it's so video game nerd, Guild Wars.
Oh, I did. Oh my god, I completely
played that
forgot.
since 2005, and it was like it was so some people don't consider it MMO, but it was like my like intro to that genre, and I like spent so many hours on it. Became a big part, like a huge community, and obviously another name that was like selected afterwards. Like I sometimes like I'll have like it just I mean, obviously ties in with the lyrics, but it's a skill in the game that was like very dear to my heart. It's my favorite skill in that game. So that's where it's where that one came from.
There we go. Okay, good. I for a second I was like, man, it might be related to Kingdom Hearts, but alas.
So I'm gonna say wow, World of Warcraft, because I think they also have a skill too.
That's true. That's true. That's true. Jonathan didn't answer us. He said yes, the burning of the pagoda. So now we know. We figured it out. Awesome. But we're gonna move into track number 3, guys. This one is called Shadow Form. We're gonna kick it off in 3, 2, 1.
God told me in silence,
I love this intro.
life is a virus. I look to the sky and I see nothing but violence. Since you took that cross, I've been lost. I can't find peace if it comes at a cost. I gave up. Now I'm losing myself to the faith that saves us. Will save us. Yeah, go yourself. Can't be the only way to find the truth. By love, can you forgive me for wanting proof? Shadow of you follow me through everything, but I keep trying to catch you. I keep trying to catch you always. If I let you go, you take my time, 'cause I'm losing my vibe and I'm losing my home. Don't wanna loathe the peace that I found. I won't let this change who I am now. I don't regret it where my head has been. Will
All right, guys, if you just tuned in, this is track number 3, Shadow Form, off of Wither Away's newest record, I Won't Find Hope in You, out now. Go check it out. Links below. Anyway, JJ, it's been obviously great having you go through all of these songs. I'm sure it brings up a lot of these like memories of recording it, and I hope that people get a lot out of it. I'm such a music nerd that I like to know, details that probably don't matter to most people, but I hope that there is a select few people that enjoy these sorts of things where we break down everything and go through it. But funnily enough, I didn't really like this song at first, but it grew on me so much. And then by the time, like, now while I'm listening to it, I'm just like, oh, this is so good. I think it's just because initially, like, we're like the third song in, and I'm like, this is a little slow, but like not like slow where I'm like, oh, this is like dragging. It's just above where I'm like, oh, okay, like, not that I don't love it, but like if it was just like the tiniest bit faster, that would be like peak.
I feel you on that. Yeah, I feel you on that.
Like it drags just a smidge, but it's not like enough for me to like hate it.
I'm trying to think what BPM it's at. I think it's like, so I think it's actually faster BPM, but it's like a faster slow BPM.
Yeah,
so it's like
yeah.
Yeah. No, I agree with you though, and it's a weird track. So it's very strange because it's, I can't really like compare it to anything that we've done before.
Yeah.
Intro, it's funny. You'll see a comment. I saw a comment. Someone's like, listened to Architect's Animals once, and I was like, we didn't even, when this song was finished, we didn't even know that song came out. But like the whole like,
yeah.
It's just like it's a weird thing that we've never done, and it worked out. Like it's cool. Like it's like it's like heavy, but it's not. Because like I said, we all are like metalheads, so I sprinkling some of that stuff in here and there is nice because it gives us a weird sound. So
I think like the thing that really hooked me in mostly was that last chorus, like where there's those two divergent overlapping like vocal lines. I'm just like, every time that comes in, I'm like, ooh, I love it, and that's what kind of like hooks me in for like those last, probably like that last 30 to 45 seconds where I'm like, okay, like this is good, and then like we raise up a little bit, and then I was like, okay, this one's solid. I don't know how people get the Architect's Animals, because I don't
get it either.
I feel like if anything, if my math serves me correct, I think this might predate Animals Architect. Architects by
so
Animal.
Actually, I was gonna correct you earlier. This came out in 2021, but we had it finished for a while. Yeah.
Okay. I don't know why on my shout outs to Sony Center or whatever the fuck it's called, they decided to put 2020. So I'm like, okay.
We may have gotten those masters may be dated. I think they were dated to 2020.
Ah, okay.
Most likely, that's probably where it's coming from, because I remember we finished it and then we're like, what do we do now?
Do we just sit on it?
Yeah. So it was but yeah. So yeah, it came out in 2021. So it was like, actually, I think it was like right around that time when they released that. So
that's hilarious.
Yeah.
So that I'll have to go find the comment, because I want to just completely debunk the fact that it does not send anything like Architect's Animals. And I
like Architects.
And Architects is great. Don't get me wrong, but I don't think the two are correlated in any sort of way. But yeah, I think, as like I said, this one's a grower. I always feel like there's at least like one or two songs on an album where I'm like, initially I'm like, not really feeling this one. But this one, I would argue, has grown on me a ton since I've listened to it. And I'm curious how many times I have listened through to this entire record, because I know I've listened through it a lot. So
that's awesome.
So for me, it's like, these are cool because like, I'll like put it on in the shower, like when I'm taking a shower every once in a while, and try to figure out like, okay, what they're trying to do with this. Okay, I like this. And just kind of enjoying it. Like sometimes I feel like when I have albums and I like do when I used to do reviews, which I don't know, maybe I'll get back into it, but I feel like sometimes I'm just like, man, I don't get to savor like an album like I used to, and this album I think like definitely suffered from that for a long period of time, and I took a break. I was just like, all right, I'm gonna step away, I'm gonna listen to other stuff, and then I'm gonna come back to it and have like that refreshed mentality on it. And I came back and listened to it. I'm like, chef's kiss, we love it. So
Dude, that's awesome.
so I feel like for me it's like any album that if I step away from it and I can come back to it and still have that love and appreciation for it, that I think that's like in my favorites, or like, you know, amongst my favorite records. Like the one that I listened to more recently, that actually two records I listened to more recently, was Loads, I Let It In, and It Took Everything. I went re-listened to that again after like taking some, you know, time off from listening to it, and I was like, oh, this is as good as I remember it coming out, you know. So I would say that, and then shout outs to Sleep Token, the first album, Sundowning. I re-listened to that on, because I, you know, I'm gonna sound like a total hipster, but I have a bunch of vinyl records over here like by my TV.
Oh, no, you know hipster.
And well, not now, but people
Everyone's
tell
got
me,
vinyls now.
people tell me
Everyone's got-
they're like, oh my god, you have so many vinyls. But I went back and listened to that recently, and I was just like, god, that is such a monumentally good record. So guys, check out those two bands if you haven't, but also go check out Wither Away, another shill. Go check them out, links below. But as we mentioned, this you know, the song title is from Guild, love it. You know, in terms of lyrics, you know, where is this stemming from? I know I feel like we're gonna continue the trend of, you know, saying like, you know, it's about mental battles that, you know, a lot of people deal with. But in regards to this one, I'm curious where you know, the lyrical inspiration came from.
Yeah, so obviously they're like alongside of like personal feelings, like faith is a big one that this song focused on.
Mhm.
And you know, some people will interpret it as like loss of faith, because you know, questioning, you know, God's silence, and
Mhm.
you know, kind of, it almost sounds like, it sounds angry with the lyrics, and like, and there is anger, and but at the same time, you know, the song is also going back to the point where it's like, trying to reassure, like, you know, ex or existing evangelicals that it's okay to question. It's okay to not always feel like, you know, if you're, you know, are of the faith, you know, you're not of, it's okay to, you know, to feel that way. And like, you know, I'm always still learning on what I believe every day, but that was something I think a lot of people came to me afterwards, was like, hey, I understand exactly what you're saying. And I like, it really helps me, because like when you're growing up, like I grew up in the church, I grew up
Same.
in Christian school,
Yep.
and like you know, I constantly felt like I wasn't able to ask questions or express myself in the same way, like, you know, or even like, you know, ask questions that were like, or was like, I don't feel this, or, you know, like it always felt like it was uh, what's the word I'm looking for? It just felt damning, and like,
Yeah,
if
yeah,
I
yeah.
were to do that, yeah. So, you know, that's what this whole song is about. Because I mean, at the same time, it's like, you know, if God is real and God is that of what is explained, like, you know, everything about me, you know, my weaknesses, my strengths, all that.
Mhm.
But you know, and you know, it kind of like one of the like the authors that really, I think that was very like prominent, especially in the time, was like C.S. Lewis, and like explaining
Yeah.
what he felt about how like dealing with, you know, like the one, it's like the one book he has, like Grief Observed. It's like, you know, people will be like, is he losing his faith? It's like, no, like someone can question. There's nothing wrong with that, and that's kind of what this is. So this song's obviously, you know, seeing everything in the world the way it is, seeing, you know, all the hurt, the pain, questioning the silence of God and things like that, but not saying losing the faith, but, you know, it's more of a, yeah, I think it's more of like a something to help out other, I think, people that struggle with that too. So.
Yeah, I think that, like, obviously now, because like I said, I've listened to this album many times, and I didn't even really come to the conclusion that it was like kind of like, not that your band's religious, but like, you know, I didn't even come to the conclusion that it was religious. And I understand that, like, you know, when we were talking about April, that you kind of keep it very like generic in that sense of like, okay, well, this is how you interpret it, then like that's not wrong, you know, like you kind of leave it up to interpretation, which I think is great. However, you know, obviously you speaking about from your stance of, you know, growing up religious, I also grew up pretty religious, and you know, I think for me, like having you explain this song to me, I can find a lot of like relation to, you know, how I felt, you know, growing up, and kind of like questioning certain things that exist. Like, why do you think people, you know, why do you think people get like Alzheimer's, or why do you think people get these horrible diseases that, you know, if this is what's right, like if this is what he feels just, then like why does it, or you know, whatever deity is, like why do they feel like that's just, right? And so I can kind of resonate with that sort of anger and you know, feelings of like, okay, well, this might not be, you know, something I believe strongly in anymore, but that doesn't necessarily mean that like you can't have those types of arguments where like, you know, I do agree with you in the sense of like people would be like, oh my God, I can't believe you're questioning, you know, your faith and your belief in this. And I think that, you know, much like we you know, question some things in science of like, you know, if this is accurate, and it's not necessarily like to debunk it or anything. It's just like, okay, well, if this is your conclusion, you came to this, like show us why you feel like you came to that conclusion, you know. And that can't be kind of riddled out with, you know, religion, because obviously there's no like scientific, you know, numerical value or whatever. So it's about people's emotions and things of that nature. But yeah, no, I do. Now that I like have heard the lyrics and kind of like felt the connection, like you know, it does have this sort of resonance now, that now knowing that and listening to it, I can be like, okay, now it all, like now it makes sense, now it's coming together in that sense. And I hope that people kind of, you know, come to the same, I don't even want to say the same conclusion, because if you are strong in what you believe, then that's awesome, and if you're not, then that's also fine too. But I don't think it's anybody's belief to be like step in and take control of someone else's like ideology.
Well, it's also like, I mean, it's you know, like I said, it was kind of like calling out to people that like, you know, you're raised a certain way.
Sure.
You could be raised not of the faith and struggle with like, hey, I want to be of the faith, but I have a family that, you know, and that could be your, you know, is it questioning that like the lack of God, or the lack of that, you know, maybe there is a God, you know, it's the whole questioning. I think that's the biggest thing for it. It's like, for me personally, questioning what I was raised on, but at the same time, I think everyone should ask questions, you know, always. Like you should, there's never a time, and I think that's like a big thing that like with like just society in general, everyone wants to feel like they're so sure about everything.
Yeah.
And they're so sure about like, oh, this is right, this is wrong, and it's like I'm just like, that's why I don't really have a big social media presence. I don't really try to get too opinionated, but like, because like I don't want to be involved in that, to be honest.
Sure. Fair enough. Same.
But like it's one of those things. Is like I don't know everything.
Yeah,
I don't know. Yeah, it's like I have a moral compass, and I feel that like my morals are well. And like that's another thing in the song. It's like, you know, if I lose my faith, will I still be the same? Will I still feel inspired by the same morals that I was raised upon? Like I do feel that I try to be the best that I can possibly be, and that's kind of like that question there too. But yeah, so there's like a lot of things in there, and I would say out of all the songs that I've written or wrote, whatever the right grammar is,
who knows?
That was probably one of the most specific songs, though still generic enough that it could help a large group of people. So
I would agree as well. Like I said, for me, it was very like, you know, I would argue pretty in tune with most things. That was not the first thing that I came to. So that, cool. I mean, not only is that cool, but also in the sense that like, if people want to derive some more like intricacies out of it, they can certainly do that. You know, in terms of the song itself, JJ, did this relatively stay the same from the pre-production version, or was there a lot of changes? Because I would be surprised if it relatively stayed the same, but
Yeah, there was a lot of changes. So there was a lot of the leads stay the same. It actually was darker, I feel like. It had
ooh,
like that like dissonance sound to it, but it didn't have the chugs and such.
I got you.
And I think Ricky took those pre-pros and he really kind of like refined it to make it something really cool. I remember hearing the first rendition when they were like working on it. And I was like, oh, that is so much cooler than what we cooked together originally. and that's the coolest thing with production is it's like, that's what a producer does.
Yeah.
You have these ideas and they're all over the place and you're like, I know that there's good in here, so they pull the good out, and that's what happened with this song. It was different. I listened to that pre-pro and I do really like it, but it was like had a very dark like undertone to it, almost like very desperate sounding, and a lot of that was kind of like not necessarily wiped away, but it was more like rounded out.
Yeah, I agree. Obviously you could probably speak on how involved Ricky was in the process of like, crafting this sort of record, because I feel like he's had pretty. I would argue he has a pretty good hand, and certainly knowing what your band is, and I know we even talked about it before where he's been a crucial part about like how the band's been put together, and obviously like crafting your sound, and as he's kind of gotten better at doing production work, like you guys have grown as a band, and so I feel like with this song and kind of like you said, going through that demo and pre-pro where it was like a lot heavier, a lot darker, a lot more, it has a lot more despair in it. I feel like this one is still equally as like heavy in that aspect, but also I think like there's a nice reprieve where it's just kind of like, okay, like there is some like heavier, like more like open, like dark parts, but then there's also some like kind of like, again, the whole like light and dark thing where I feel like there is some like positivity and like kind of like melodicness that carries on through, I would say more specifically like the verses, and then the choruses when it kind of just like comes back in and hits more with like with more energy. And so I'm glad that Ricky was able to like craft this in the way that he's been doing with this album, because I think that some of the choices melodically as well as like production wise, I think were very well put together. And I think this song, I would love to hear like the pre-pro versus this, because I'm sure there would be much more of a juxtaposition between the two, certainly, but yeah, this one I think has a lot more sentimental value now that I know like lyrically where it comes from, as well as like musically. It's just got like, it still hits, like even though it does feel like you said like a little bit slow. It just, now I'm like, okay, now it's like I can hear it again in my head, and I'm like, okay, this might be like, this is starting to grow a little bit more as we get on. So I'm glad that's that. Cool. Obviously, guys, we're going to move into the fourth track, which is the title track, I Won't Find Hope in You. And as I had mentioned, this features Ricky himself on this track, so very excited. Also, the music video was great. I went back and watched it like after the album was out, and I was like, oh my god, this is so sick. So go check the music video out, really cool. But this is going to be the title track, I Won't Find Hope in You. We're going to put it on in 3, 2, 1.
Knowing everything and all you did for me, but I won't try to hide the mercy you gave my life. But it's just me and my letters, writing just to feel seen, and it doesn't get better. Everything stays the same. Depressed, but now I see this beauty and this melody. So It's one for the money, two for the time, three for the lack of sleep. Always in my eyesight. I always said I'd never be this way, but nothing will continue to change. Depressed, but now I see this beauty and this melody. So forgive the song now for drowning all my words out. Break down, shut out the world and let it fade out. Shut out the world and let it go. Just let it go. I'm at a loss for words. I can't see from the floor. Yeah, 'cause I won't let it go. And I don't wanna be me anymore. And all I've done, a couple stunts, is not enough. Reality is gonna sneak up when you fool around and think that you're the one. I always said I was only writing lyrics when I said that I don't like having fun. Depressed, but now I see this beauty and this melody. So forgive the song now for drowning all my words out. Break down, shut out the world and let it fade out. Shut out the world and let it go.
All right, guys, if you're just tuning in, you should rewind and watch the other half that we did, and now we're here. But anyway, besides the point, this is the title track, I Won't Find Hope in You, featuring Ricky Armelino. I did pronunciate it terribly on the last time he had a feature. Shoutouts to the band Enox. I know he did a feature on their song, and I butchered that terribly, so I've redeemed myself. But this song to me is like, again, quintessential Wither Away. The hooks are so good, the chorus is awesome, and I think it just got the right mix of just like energy, and then the flow is really well put together, and then just obviously with the Ricky feature was awesome too. I just think collectively this is the song that I like when I'm like, hey, you should check this band out. This is the first song that I almost always recommend, and then I obviously give a few others, but genuinely this is the one I feel like really represents the album pretty well. It's got like the nice melodic elements in there, it's got the heavy elements, there's some screaming, there's some clean singing, and it's just a fun song. Like I genuinely like listen to it, and I just get like people could see me driving and I'll have this blasting and I'll just be having a good time just jamming it out, and honestly people probably think that I'm having like an exorcism or something, but it's great. What do you think about this song? Because obviously I feel like this one, I would argue, is one of your more popular tracks, if that's fair to say.
I love this track. I hated how we released it, and I'll explain why. Because, like, and I'm extra particular, but I named it I Won't Find Hope in You. But when we announced that, and this might have been part of the reason why people didn't know, it was the single that we released to announce the record. But the record was also called I Won't Find Hope in You.
Yeah, okay, that would make sense.
So confusing, right? Like, so I love this track. I loved what we did with it, but I was I was like a little bit questioning it. Maybe I'm overthinking it too. Like I said, what we talked about in the beginning, like there wasn't the level of effort that was put into the record, was spent at the end of the record.
Sure.
And so that was, I would say, mainly to blame. But yeah, I love this track. It was a fun track to make. It's an interesting lyrical track. Like it's very strange in the way that the lyrics are compared to the rest of the record. But I really enjoy it, and I like playing this one live too. It has a lot of energy. Gets a lot of people moving. Yeah. Very fun.
What do you mean by like lyrically different? Like I'm curious. What do you mean by that?
What I mean by that, so lyrically different to me, because when I write this song, what it means to me is the whole album is I won't find hope in you, and people are like, yeah, I won't find hope in a certain person, but I'm talking about myself, and I'm referring to myself in this track more so about like growing up and how I tried protecting myself from, you know, like, how do you say, like from getting hurt in certain ways, and
Okay.
holding myself back, and that's kind of what this whole track's about. So like someone's gonna listen to this song and be like, oh my gosh, I feel exactly the same way, and they have no idea that I feel this way, and I hope that doesn't like water down the meaning. Which, I mean, me personally, when I would hear the, you know, explanations of like, uh you know, a lot of the bands I grew up with, you know, it never changed it for me. It never
Sure.
affected
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
way I felt. I pulled from it, but yeah, it was, you know, this track specifically, because it's the record, because it's the, you know, the self-title of the record. Um, it was very much focused on like, you know, I won't, you know, I won't find hope in you, in who I used to be. You know, I'm gonna be a different person, basically.
Yeah. No. 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 And I think I kind of juxtapose that with, yeah, I do kind of feel the, like, what you got the comments about people saying like, oh yeah, this is like, yeah, I won't find hope in like whoever this person is, you know. And
Yeah.
that's what I initially thought it was about, but now, like, obviously talking about all of the songs collectively, and then also, you know, just talking with you, you know, in general, JJ, now like, okay, now it makes sense. I don't feel like the ideology of it watering it down, like, I feel like if it was in the same boat as, like, you know, I grew up listening to Under Oath, like if Under Oath said like this song was about us, like, and how much turmoil we had faced, because if anybody's seen any of the Under Oath like old DVDs and stuff, like, they had a bunch of shit wrong, you know, and they used to fight all the time. If anything, I think they used to fight a lot. And so, you know, there's a lot of inner turmoil amongst the band. So I think for me, like, when a band's like, oh, this song's like a lyricist or like the vocalist, usually if they're like, oh, this song's actually directed at me specifically, like, I think that puts a little bit more weight into it, at least from my perspective, as being like in, you know, interviewer slash like music nuthead, you know, like, I love the fact that it's specifically written to you, because I think that I think it brings like a personal note to it, where, like, you know, there's a level of honesty that you have to have in order to go through that process of being like, this is a song for me, like, I have to put this out there for not only myself, but I also have to put that out to know that, like, I had felt this way for a while now. You know, I hope that, you know, I hope you're in a better spot, certainly, JJ, but like, you know, I think there's a level of honesty and I guess humbleness, where it's like, I am writing this because I know I need it, and I think there's a lot of, at least from me, like, I think there's a lot of respect that I have to give to you, to be like, okay, like, this is something that I need to fix, or something that or I can look back on something and be like, yeah, that wasn't a good choice, you know, or you know, be very critical, because I think sometimes that's important, you know. I think that there's a lot of stuff, you know, that I've done in my life that I look back on and I'm like, you know, I could have probably handled that differently. You know, I could have looked at it from a different lens. And I think getting older, you know, everybody says, you know, the older you get, the wiser you are, or whatever. I would hope that's the case. But I mean, I think for me, like, looking back and being like, okay, those are bad choices or bad things that I made. You know, am I able to alter myself, or am I able to correct what I need to do? And I think that this song very much feels that way, where it's like, it serves as a reminder to be like, okay, this is where I was, this is where I hope to be at going further, you know. And I don't know if I nailed it or not. You could tell me, certainly, but
It's almost, it's not the what I was like. So I feel like I'm pretty similar to like I was back when I was younger, but it's the lack. I was so safe growing up. And so safe to the point where I feel like I didn't like help the people I needed to at the time. I wasn't involved as much. You know, I was protecting myself, like I was saying, like,
yeah.
And obviously I look back and I'm like, you know, I'm much more mindful now. I think about things completely, but at the time I was just so focused on like how I felt, you know, how I, you know, I was a sad emo kid in high school, so
Yep.
a lot of the, you know, a lot of the music that I listened to then, like, and that's inspired by, like, obviously, like, the Used, Census Fail,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and all those different bands, like, I, like, held so deeply to that and, like, just love to be, like, okay, how can I protect myself from feeling this way? And, like, I look back and I say, like, that's not who I want to be. I want to
Mhm.
be someone that can help others and, understand it's okay to be depressed. Like, and move forward. That's kind of where it was at. So, like, that you're pretty close to that. Like, I'm not happy with the way I was prior, and I want to move forward with that. Granted, I still love all those records. I listen to this always. Like,
Oh, yeah, of
when
course,
you talk
yeah.
about when you talk about listening to things on repeat, like, I don't know if this is me being a musician, but, like, I just can't. There's very rare amount of new stuff that I do like, and I'm not, like, being like, oh, back in my day. No, it's like I go back and I listen to the stuff like the early 2000s stuff, and I'm just like, man, this is so timeless, it's so great. Like, I love the lyrics, I love everything about it, and like you said, there's so much music out nowadays.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
like,
Oh.
I'm always looking for, like, I mean, we're still pretty local band for the most part. Like, we haven't, like I said, the reception for this has been good, but hasn't been as great as we want it to be. Um, so it's like I'm still looking for other bands that I'm like, oh man, I want to find other bands like, that inspire people the same way that I think we inspire people, and I like love to see that. And it's I'm not sorry, I'm not saying there's not good bands out there. I don't mean it that way, but, like, I
I know
think
what you mean, though.
being a musician, like, kind of like it makes it hard to enjoy music on the same level.
Fair enough, yeah.
Yeah, and that's the toughest thing about it. But yeah, I'm sorry, I was going off on a tangent.
No, no, no. That's great. I think. Well, first of all, tangents are always welcome here because I'm pretty sure I go off on tangents when I shouldn't too. So it's good. But I think I agree with you in some aspect where, like, I think I'm kind of on the polar opposite where I listen to a lot of music and some of it just doesn't kind of hit the same way that, like, you know, as I mentioned previously, like a Sleep Token or like a Loathe,
Yeah.
or like your band Wither Away, like those are albums that I know, like, at least for me, will stand that test of time. Where if I listen to like X amount of records in a month and like one or two of them are like gold, great. And there's some months where I'm like, hey, whatever. It's, there's an album that I like, there might be a bunch of albums that I really enjoy, and then I wind up listening to them a lot, and then they just kind of make it through the ringer, and then, wind
Yeah.
up making it into some of my favorites, So I think it's just, I as I get older too, and again, it's not like, music back. I totally get you with the whole like music back in my day was so much more heartfelt or whatever. I think for me, it's more like, what's an album that can still remain timeless no matter what generation it's in, right? Like, there's plenty of albums that my parents grew up listening to that are generationally like timeless, and I'll go and listen to them. And like, my parents showed me a lot of like classic rock bands, and there's like a lot of records where I'm like, holy shit, like this is still such a fantastic record, and it's been like 40 years or like 50
Yeah.
years or something like that. So I think that I hope that people look back on some of these like emo, metalcore, post-hardcore records with the same, like, I don't want to say same lens, but I think with the same like love and admiration as as I'm sure our parents do for the records that they listen to. So that's what I hope. I think that
Yeah.
I think this for me is, again, amongst my ever-growing list of favorite records. And I think just the fact that obviously we're able to talk about the songs one-on-one and go through them all, I think it just makes it a little bit, I think it makes it a little bit more personable to me, where I already
Yep.
felt that way listening to the album, and then just kind of getting your take on where the songs came from and all this sort of stuff. Like, now it just makes me like add into the musical folds, as you will, So really cool. The kind of follow-up question to that one, because I feel like that one was a hot and heavy topic, but we love it. Was this track originally supposed to feature Ricky? Did he actually want to feature? Not that I feel like he wouldn't have, but like, was he originally thought of as like, oh man, I should feature on this track, or was that some, or were you guys like, yo, I think you should be on this track, like,
I think he was so we were looking at getting 2 features, and we're like, Ricky, you've been recording us for this long, like you've never featured like you never featured on any of our tracks, and this was one of the tracks I think we wanted to feature on. The other one was Shadow Form before
What?
Persona.
Oh my
So,
god.
yeah, so that there was that whole like like that like little
Yeah.
middle part. I'm sorry, it's like, doesn't do it justice, but that was gonna be, I was gonna send that to Cam for that part, but we decided to change it up a little bit. Yeah.
Wow. That's
Sorry
great.
to jump ahead, but yeah. So yeah, no, for this track we were set for that. And actually, fun fact about Ricky is Ricky also, not only does he produced us, but he also married me and my wife. So he was our.
Oh my god, that's great.
So funny.
I love that. Oh, that's adorable. That's great. Oh man, that's so cool. Now I know a tidbit that literally does nothing to this album, but
Yeah,
just makes me
I know,
feel
it's totally
whole.
funny.
I love it. That's awesome. That's great. But yeah, this one, I don't know. Like, I would definitely say it's amongst the top 5. I know April's very much up in those tier rankings, and I'm sure by the end of it, I'll be able to tell you, without a doubt, discerningly which ones are my favorite. But I would say thus far, April and I Won't Find Hope in You are the 2 chef's kisses right now. Very excited for the next track. The town where it cuts it off. I don't know why this. I'm gonna
The town where only I am missing. It's a weird title, but if it's what we were talking about earlier, that's the reason for it. So I'll explain it then.
There we go. All right, guys. This is the town where only I am missing. We're gonna get to it in 3, 2, 1.
Do you wanna be alive? Do
This
you
intro, man,
wanna
gets me
not
every time.
alive?
Oh.
Do you wanna live a life one more night? When by time you sink, the past is fading, you lose everything. Happiness fades to something gray, and you change. Oh, I would have loved to know the stories that I would have told. Do you want to be alive? When you find another life. Do you wanna be alive? Do you want another life? Do you wanna be alive? Do you wanna live a life? Do you wanna live a lie again? Lost in the sea of thought, depression's here, she is never lost. And though I love her touch and she talks too much, I am a guardian of what the world was. And though I would have loved to know the stories that I would have told. Do catch my soul. Do you want to be alive? Will you find another life? Don't be catch my soul. Do you wanna be alive? Do you wanna catch my
All right, guys, if you tuned in just now, this song is called "The Town Where Only I Am Missing." This is off of Wither Away's newest record, "I Won't Find Hope in You." This one's I would argue is fighting for that top slot. I love this song so much. I think just like I would argue this is my favorite vocal performance from you. Just I know it's mostly singing, but I think like even like some of the like stuff where you get towards the end, we're in the bridge, and even kind of the ending, there's just like this beautiful like emotional kind of screaming where it's like you can tell it's not like perfect, but just the way that it is like screamed is just so like emotionally evoking that I'm like, oh, it just like every time this song hits, I'm like, oh, it's so good. I think the first time, I'm gonna admit it, the first time I listened to it, I think I shed a tear because it was just so good. So
That's awesome.
This one is arguably my favorite. I did see, this is the song that I did see some information online, and if the information could be corroborated on which anime is related to, I'm going to be very stoked. I believe someone had mentioned that this song is in relation to the anime Erased. I don't know if that's a fact or not, but that series, Chef's Kiss, love that. I love that anime series. And so just the fact that this song was about or inspired by that anime, oh, it just...
So actually, funny thing about that is when the record was being worked on, like in the early stages, this is the first song of the record, by the way.
Oh,
First one that was brought in, yeah. So like, my brain was like, I want to make it all about Erased. I want to make the whole thing to like all the different like, because I really liked that. Like I realized I really like time travel when I saw that one, and I really like the implications of it and such, and I like the mental I would say like the toll it takes on the main character.
Yeah.
That's kind of what it's actually what this song is about too, because like he's struggling with his job, like can't make like ends meet, end meet, and like he gets the chance to go back and like fix everything, and that's kind of what that whole like that whole song's about. But yeah, the whole record was actually at one point like in the beginning stages going to be focused on that, but I realize it's like it's making a what do you call what's that term for it? Making a concept album. It's really difficult.
Yeah.
Because then he kind of takes away some freedoms. So I was like, I can make songs about certain things and others, but yeah.
I'm glad it was about Erased. If you guys haven't watched that
it.
anime series, you gotta go do it. I don't know if it's still on Netflix, but if you can, go watch it. It's great. I did see some... This is completely side tangent, whatever. But I did see that the creator of the show is doing another series of the show. I believe.
Because what's his name? Kai Senbei?
I think so.
The author, he has another manga, and actually it's the first manga that I've ever actually been reading like as it's come out. Like I buy each book. It's for the kid I saw in my dream, and it's pretty good. I wouldn't say it's on the same level as Erased, but it's picking up now, and I do enjoy it. But it's crazy. He's actually, I think, in his 70s. The author of Erased, yeah.
That's great. He's still
awesome.
killing it. I don't know. I wish I had the mental fortitude to come up with stuff like that at the ripe age of 70. So
and and is it called mangakas or whatever? I forget what the actual term is, but they have an aggressive like their like approach to, like, they have like their editors and their publishers like down their throat to get new books out. So like I can't imagine being 70 plus trying to do that. Yeah, but
Well, listen, if you somehow stumble upon this, take your time, sir. You know, you come out with some really great manga, so I
yeah.
gotta give you the props. But yes, I love that anime series, and when I saw a comment on this song on YouTube, and I was like, oh god, I gotta ask JJ if it's related to Erase, because if it is,
It is.
woo, that's going up. The tier list is going up the tier. No,
That's awesome.
no, I love that, and I kind of almost assumed it without even asking the question, because I think even lyrically I was like, wow, this kind of reminds me a lot of Erased, and I was just like, then I watched it and I listened to that song and I was like, wait a second, what are they the same thing? Like, is it like, you know, it's like, you know, the whole saying of like life imitates art kind of a thing, and I just feel like it was very well executed without, like, if you know, I feel like if you know, you're like, okay, it's sick. But like if you didn't know it, it's still just as good of a song, and I think that that's the beauty of it, is that like you get more out of it if obviously you know where the reference is coming from. But if you don't know the reference, it's still like just as hauntingly, you know, devastating and beautiful at the same time, that I think a lot of people might miss out on that like true meaning of it. But I guess in terms of, you did mention this being one of the first songs and like trying to kind of possibly build a concept record off of it, and just kind of the confines of that. Did you ever feel like with Wither Away, would you ever do something like that where you would build like a concept record, or do you feel like it's just too constricting to the point where you're like, maybe I can, like you said, you could write songs about like one specific thing if you wanted to?
There's like, so it's never out of the picture. I mean, we've discussed even moving forward with some, like, with the potential of an EP being a concept,
yeah.
and also being like, you know, like I said, experimenting with things that we've never touched in before, as a band. Like I said, a lot of the ties we want to kind of go into is like despair and metal and things like that, but it's like we don't want to like blindside fans with the way that we've been releasing stuff.
Sure.
So it's like, you know, there's a thought. I mean, we have some new stuff coming out and things like that I think fans will really like, but the concept thing has definitely been an idea, and it's still definitely on the whiteboard for certain things.
There we go.
And really, concept wise, it would be something that's like original, I guess.
Okay.
Almost. Like so it'd be a little bit different than following like the anime stuff, but.
Well, nonetheless, we'll be keeping an eye out for it. Kind of similarly, I find that like bands do well in that sort of EP style format. I know a lot of people just kind of like are so enamored, including myself, of like, you know, classic metalcore band Devil Wears Prada and doing the zombie EP. You know, like that was so monumental to that like whole concept thing, and again, a timeless record, I'd argue, for most people. And so, you know, I hope that I love when bands kind of do that, where they like kind of like just break off and maybe do like an album and then come back and like, you know, obviously get back onto their main roots. But I you know, and then sometimes it kind of just like ultimately winds up making it into their sound. I know that Devil Wears Prada did, like, they obviously did the Zombie EP, then they did the Space EP, and then they released Zombie 2 pretty recently. Well, you know, recently.
Recently.
You know,
in COVID years.
Yeah. Oh boy.
2020 was 2 years ago. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Actually almost 3.
I just feel like it's like 2020 and 2021 are just like smushed together, and then like they just completed like they're like 2020.5, you know. So I don't really feel like we're in that the next stage, but that's a whole topic for another time. But I do feel like with their band, like they were able to incorporate their sound, and they've been able to evolve over those years, and so I do like that. And still kind of keeping that divergent thing where they do some concept record and then come back and then do another record, and it's great. So shout out to Devil Wears Prada. But lyrically, I know you said you know had a lot of help from Erase the series, but was there any sort of like personal touches that you added into the song that you were like, okay, like, obviously it doesn't follow everything to a T, certainly, but was there any sort of like, I guess, like, divergence of like, okay, I've seen the series, like, I love it, like, how would I kind of like go about it? Or is it more so from like an outsider's perspective of like seeing these events and being like, holy shit, like, this is what's going on?
I like when I want to write about, if something is so good that I want to write about it, when I'm thinking about like the main character that I'm writing about or whatever I'm writing about, it's like I've had to feel and almost kind of like rationalize being in their shoes in that sense. Oh
yeah, okay.
So he's 29, I'm 28 now, which at the time when we were writing this, I was like, oh, that's so far away from oh man, being in that spot, and it's like, oh my gosh, like I resonate even more with it, like the feeling of just being stuck in kind of a sense. So like that's more so that's kind of like the different like songs that are written about an anime or something that felt so, or even any media felt so impacted by it, typically will be very personal to me. I'm not going to write about something that I don't really feel
sure.
So and that's why it fits so well into the lyrics and fits well into this album, because people were being like, Ricky was like, bro, you all right? April, and then
now this one
it's like yeah.
I could certainly feel that as like being a producer and having to hear some of this stuff, especially now going over some of the like concepts. I'm kind of like, I'm just gonna be like, JJ, you all right, man? Like, is everything good? Like, I know we're having this conversation now, but like, is everything all right? So,
Yeah.
like I said, this one to me is top. I would argue is probably my favorite song off the entire record. I mean, obviously, I want to preface that I've listened to this record a bunch of times, but this one gets me every time. So I want to say that this one, if we had Brandon's pick for today, this one's the one, without a question. But there's a few other songs on this list here that arguably are up in those slots there, but really like this one, guys. Again, Wither Away, all the links in the description, go check it out. We're gonna move on to track number 6, which is Persona. This one features Hotel Books, which is awesome. Shout outs to Cam, come on the channel, Cam, be very cool. But very excited about this one, so we'll get into that one in 3, 2, 1.
Keep my heart in the track, keep out
All right, guys, if you're just tuning in, this one is Persona featuring Hotel Books, and this is off of Witherway's newest record, I Won't Find Hope in You. I hope you guys are not getting tired of me talking about this or shilling the record, because I'm going to keep shilling it for the next 4 songs. But I think right off the bat, this one is immediately catchy. Like, I think that was the first initial thought when I listened to it starting out. I was just like, man, this really ropes you in right away. I love the really kind of like, similarly to April, I love the like ethereal kind of like, it sounds like there's kind of like a like delayed guitar like riff, as well as just like the overall sound has this real kind of like reverb-y kind of like open sound that I've really come to love about, the way that you guys experiment with like dynamics and stuff, like where there's songs that are just like really like right in your face, like aggressive, and then when the songs become more ethereal, like The Town Where I Am Only Missing, like that one's very ethereal as well, and I forgot to mention that, but I digress. But I love that you guys kind of carve out that way of like where there needs to be aggressiveness, it's there, and when it's not, then something else fills that slot. And I think that's I think Ricky had obviously a part in that, and kind of shaping the record, but I will say, like, collectively, like, the songs have just been really well put together. And I know I mentioned that in Kagane, but it just the way that everything kind of sits, there's just like this nice dynamic with all of the songs like off the record, where I'm just like, okay, like this one's like more ethereal and like more like lighthearted and more fun, and then there's songs that are a little bit more like more rock derivative or like post-hardcore derivative, where it's like, okay, there's this aggressive nature of it. So I like that. And I think this one is amongst my favorite as well. Initially, I don't don't worry. I have a cat too. He has not made his way into my room yet, but if he does come, I'll show him. But I think that the way that this one is just sits super well, and especially after having a song that's just a little bit like, I don't want to say depressing, because that sounds terrible, but like having a song that's just like, like lyrically dense, to having a song that is probably equally as lyrically dense, but musically is a lot like more soft and more melodic, and has a little bit more like joy or energy to it. I like that. So in terms of the original like demo or pre-pro of the song, did it roughly remain the same? Because I feel like it could have.
So this one's like blur. I don't remember having too much work in the instrumental pre-pro. I don't think it changed a lot, if I can remember correctly. But obviously for the best, because right now, like, this is our like top song. Like,
That's awesome.
Sorry.
Yeah, well deserved.
This is the real quick. But yeah, like, this is like, and it, when I listen to this song, it's like, and when we were listening to it originally, because that's why we switched over and had Cam jump into it, it was I was like, this is a solid song. I love the chorus. I love the rhythms of the verses, and like something that's really big to me, and I'm a snob, is like with like not even like with lyrics. Yeah, like lyrics, bad lyrics can ruin really good parts to me.
I would agree. Yeah.
And obviously the vice versa, and so I'm a snob when like I don't like when bands have really big choruses, amazing choruses, but then they have, he's just when I'm working, he does the same thing, but like when they have like a real big chorus, real catchy chorus, but then they don't put the time into the verses, and I'm like, I feel like the verses are like introducing the intro, the verses, and all that stuff, introducing the listener to like get them prepped for it. So I'm a snob when it comes to that stuff. So like, when we were writing this, I was like, I need something that like has like kind of anthem-y feel, but it's like different, but it's not like hip hoppy, because like I didn't want to go that, like, there is a lot of hip hop elements to it, but I didn't want to go to that realm where it was like I was following a certain trend or something. So like It was just a fun song overall to make. It was really fun to see, like, to go in and see it transform.
Yeah, I can imagine the same sort of energy is carried over in the live setting. I don't know if you guys have played this one live yet, but I can
Oh yeah,
imagine
we
like
played it live.
I only assumed as much considering it being one of your more popular songs. I'd imagine that would be the case, but I love the way it's constructed obviously. And then, like you said, you had a couple songs where you felt like Cam might have fit best, but honestly, like if you had told me that he was on Shadow Form, I probably would have been like, this is definitely the song he should have been on if it was like obvious roles reversed. But I think he just fits so well on that kind of bridge where like everything's very like melodic and like the chord changes and stuff were like really just, as being a guitar player myself, like that's something that I kind of fixate on a little bit. And so I just love how like beautiful melodic that is, and I think it fits super well with what Cam does in Hotel Books, where he kind of fits that slot super well. So I think the song probably would have been a little bit certainly different if he wasn't on the song, but I can't imagine him not being on any other song than this one. How was that process working with Cam? Because obviously it's different than Ricky, because Ricky is your producer. How did that come to be where Cam decided to make it on the track? Did you ask him to be on the track, or I'm curious how that kind of came to be?
So I reached out to him, kind of middle through the record, because we were looking at kind of solidifying that then, and he listened to this stuff and was like really enjoyed a lot of the old stuff, and then I kind of was like looking for a track that like not an area where I was like, oh, I don't know what to do here. It was more like where would he be best,
where would he fit? Yeah.
Yeah. So sent it back, and we actually like, it's kind of cool because like I didn't realize he's in California. We talked a lot, kind of got to know each other, got to like know a lot about him, and I listened to a lot of Hotel Books. Actually, the two bands that really inspired where their way to start back then was, I would say, like Hotel Books and Crooks. UK band.
Oh yes. Fantastic.
Granted, we don't sound like either, but like that was like a big inspiration to being into where we're at now, and so it was like kind of like surreal to be like talking like one-on-one for us.
Yeah.
A lot into getting to know him and such. And then he put his he did it for us, and we loved it, and he loved it, and it worked really well. It was awesome. Kind of like it was really, like I said, it was humbling to work with someone that you kind of grew up listening to and kind of inspired you to be in the project you are now.
Yeah, no, that's great, and I like Cam's stuff. Shouts to Cam. He really kind of, I never was really big on the spoken words, but then like when I listen to him and like Being as an Ocean, like Joel from Being as an Ocean, like those are bands that I'm like, and like even like La Dispute, like older bands like that where I'm like, these guys have done super well and they've carved out like a niche within the genre, and so I got to give them a lot of credit because I feel like a lot of the times people are like a little bit turned off by it, but I think there's just such I would argue there's like such poetry in the way that like spoken word people, I mean it pretty much is kind of to a degree, but I think that they just put a lot of heart and soul into songs where I'm like, when I get to that part within Persona, I'm like, okay, this is really cool. Like every time it kind of like throws me off just like the slightest bit because I'm just so used to like melodicness in the way that it's sung, and for him to kind of come in where like the bridge changes over and everything, I think it just makes it just that much more appealing for people who maybe are like me a while ago where they're like, oh, I don't know if I'm really a big fan of spoken word. I feel like this is just a nice transition of like, okay, this could be like how rock bands sometimes have like a rap feature or something like that. Not to say that they're comparable, but like I think it's just such a juxtaposition from what you're typically known for, and I like that. So and then I guess the follow-up question to you, JJ, is the name Persona, is that in relation to kind of the lyrics of the song, or is it more so related to something else?
So it's one of those like songs where it's the premise of it, and it's also in relation to, I'm a big Persona fan. Games.
Yes. Yes, the Persona
Um,
series.
so kind of like the focus of that is like specifically Persona 4 is like facing yourself
Mm-hmm.
and overcoming that. Um, kind of fits the theme of I Won't Find Hope in You. Um, but it's struggling with that. Like it when I wrote it, it was like, there was a lot of stuff going in my head, like, these, like, because I was writing these lyrics, and I'm like, how do I exactly feel? Because sometimes you just write lyrics. And you're
Sure,
just like,
sure.
what am I trying to portray? What is coming? Like, I didn't have a purpose. I'm just kind of putting out there, and it's like, you know, um, as much as like I Won't Find Hope in You is like, you know, I'm gonna be different than my past. I'm also, you know, not gonna let, you know, that back kind of if that makes sense. Like I'm not
Yeah,
gonna
yeah,
let
yeah.
that back. Like I'm not gonna let that, like, who I am now. I'm happy with who I am. I'm happy with what I'm overcoming, and like, um, it's and like in other, I've had a lot of people talk to me about it and be like, you know, is this about God? And I'm like, I wasn't writing about it that way in the sense in the beginning. Like it's weird because like when I was like figuring out the title, I was like, this makes the most sense to me. This is how I feel about it. So it's strange how like lyrics, because like, I want to go up on here and be like, have this profound explanation, but a lot of times it's just like how I'm feeling at that time.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And
No, I don't. I think that people have this overarching theme where they're like, "Oh my God, you're the vocalist." Like, there's got to be some sort of like strong correlation to like what you write, and I find that sometimes there might not be. Like for
yeah.
example, I write lyrics in my free time, like I used to do. Which I don't think anybody really knows, so this will be a first time for most people. Is that I used to write a lot of poetry growing up in like high school, and so like I've always tried to keep. I wouldn't say I keep it secret, but it's just something that like I just do in my free time that like just kind of like is something that I can like kind of have a release or be able to like be able to like speak my emotions without actually saying something, where I could just write it on like a Google Doc or whatever or something like that. Um so I find that there is a lot of therapy in that, and not that everything has to
definitely.
have some sort of purpose or something, because clearly, I'm not an artist. I mean, not yet. I'm supposedly going to be writing some stuff very soon. But it, is very therapeutic, because, like, if you're in the moment and you know that these emotions are running high, or like you're very emotional about certain things, like, it does affect how you write, or like very similarly to maybe like, how you sent me like pre-pro stuff about like, some ideas that you had. That's kind of like me, where like I'll have like a bit of lyric where I'll be like, oh man, this sounds really cool, how can I, and then I'll just save it in the Google Doc and it's not, and leave it alone, right? And then I'll come back and be like, oh shit, now I have something here, and then I'll go to the Google Doc and like fill in the rest of the blank. And I find that like, you know with artists, and there's a lot of correlation to that, where at the time maybe there isn't something right there in that moment, but then another time you might feel that same emotion or a similar emotion, in relation. You'll be like, oh, that's it, I gotta do it, I gotta like take a notepad out, or I have to like put it on my phone or something like that, where like it all comes together. And I don't think that songs have to particularly have this like overarching theme, but I think that if you can relate to how the song and how the lyrics are put together, then that, I think that speaks more volumes than for an artist to come on here and be like, this is what I felt and this is how things are. Like, obviously not everybody's going to be in the same position or the same shoes that you're in, but I think there's ways to find commonality in how
Yeah.
lyrics affect you, or how the music affects you, or the combination of those things. So yeah, I don't, to kind of piggyback on what you said, JJ, I don't feel like there is necessarily a need to be like, oh yeah, like I gotta come up with some really profound thing to say online so everybody knows that I'm like this lyricist and I do all this music stuff. Like, I just think that if people are honest with, I think if at the end of the day, like, what drags me into bands is just like the level of honesty that you can have within your lyrics, right? I think that's what most people, wind up getting tattooed on their body, or like, something like that. So I agree with, I agree that there doesn't have to always be this profound idea of of bands and stuff. But yeah, guys, let us know if you have any wither away tattoos. I don't know. Maybe there is.
There is one guy that got the EP tattooed on his calf. Like that was like the coolest moment.
Oh, that's
He's had
so
like the
cool.
whole thing, and I was like, and like, he's. I think he was. I hope if he ever watches, I hope he doesn't like get upset. I think he was in Sweden.
Oh, okay,
It's
cool.
like even cooler. Like that's like the coolest thing. It's like that you're impacting someone from across, like from halfway across the world. Like that's such a cool thing.
I think it might be. I think it is some, in the same level. It's like it must be humbling too that like somebody like you said. I don't know if it was necessarily Wither Away specifically, but I remember definitely seeing a band and they were like, oh, we're sending albums to like places we never thought this album would go to, right? And I think that's like one of the wildest things about like music being out there more. Like I know I'm talking about like there's so much music that I can't listen to, but I also think that just the impact that music has, and I would argue more specifically within our genre of music where there's just such an impact that's not only like locally within Pennsylvania but also like other states, other countries, and that's I think that's such a cool thing. And it doesn't even
It's neat, yeah.
and I think the fact that even people don't have to have like the same language to understand like heart or emotion, and I think that's like one of the wildest things that I think I've run into doing this for as long as I've been doing it for, is just the way that music connects people in like the most odd and beautiful way that it can.
Yeah,
So.
it's awesome.
But we're gonna get off that like really great tangent to the next song. Track number 7, Dark Room. Guys, get ready to listen to it in 3, 2, 1.
In the salon, looking kinda mellow. She got everything locked up like a piano.
links below. I'm gonna keep saying it until we're done with until we're done with this video, and then you can click out and then go buy everything from Wither Away. But you know what, honestly, this one I find is kind of the counterpart to Shadow Form, where I was like, I know I had mentioned in that song where I was like, it's just like slightly off from being like a little too slow. I think, at least from my perspective, it's like, oh, okay, so they learned their lesson. It's like this smidges bit faster and it feels like more cohesive. And this one, as well as Shadow Form, I felt like grew on me a ton. I love the like real like ambience that this song has, like the part where like even in the verse there's just like a bass riff, which I feel like a lot of post-hardcore bands really strive away from, where it's just like open like a bass lick and just drums. I do like that kind of like the bass took more of the forefront, and then the guitars are kind of like more of the accent piece. Obviously that changes once you get to the chorus, but you know, I digress. I really like that, and then just the build up in that bridge is so good. I love that until that last chorus is just absolutely just like slams through the roof. So I think I would argue I enjoyed this a lot more than Shadow Form, which isn't to knock my love of that song as well, but I think that it took a lot of elements that I already liked about Shadow Form and made it better. And I think that you guys kind of went more for like, I don't even know, I guess kind of like a post-hardcore kind of alt-ish sound, you know, like there's not much screaming. It's mostly singing. It reminded me a lot of this, and I'm not sure if you're too familiar with this, JJ, or not, but it reminds me a lot of Jesse Cash from Era's side band, Ghost Atlas.
Oh, Ghost Atlas.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me a lot of that, which is great. And I think, ironically enough, I think he also has a song named Dark Room, so wouldn't be
That's
not
funny.
not too far off from that. But I do really enjoy this song a lot. I would argue it's an honorable mention in my favorites, but we still got a couple left, so we'll have to delve into those. But what's your thoughts on this one, JJ?
So my thoughts on this one, it's either between this or Cherish Your Friends. It's probably my favorite, and it's changed every single time.
Wow. All right.
Yeah, it's weird. So like, writing this one was a lot of fun because it had a lot of hip hop to it.
Yeah,
it
it does.
just,
Yeah.
and like it was a very outside the Wither Away-ish realm, but we did it in a tasteful realm where like it kind of also had like the lead that's playing with that really groovy bass line is like very Incubus.
Now I can hear it. Yeah, wow.
Yeah, and granted, like, and then it kicks into the chorus where the chorus is like, I'm tonal screaming, singing the whole chorus, and it's like very powerful. Now there is some like, you know, I think what hurt me for a while was there was like a weirdness to the chorus that I just couldn't get over it, and then as I got over it, I'm like, I love this song. I like performing the song. It's very fun. But it's funny because like every like 6 months, like my favorite song will change, and that's not even like, I'll go back and listen to the EP. I'm like, man, EP is really good. Like, 'cause you don't perform the songs or you don't listen to them, you forget how they sound. It's ridiculous. And you go back and listen, you're like, oh my gosh, this is like you get a fresh view. You actually get like a much fresher view than when you had recorded it.
Wow. Okay.
So it's an interesting feeling. But yeah, so between this and Cherish Your Friends, I really enjoy these two songs.
I could tell that there was a lot of like heart and effort put into this song. Like I think just as kind of like a bystander of like knowing your band and really enjoying this record, I would argue this one just has a completely different feel from what, you know, most people listen to, but I do like the elements that were involved. Like I did, you know, I like the tidbit of it having kind of an Incubus feel to it, especially more so in the verses. I didn't really pick up on that. Now I'm listening to kind of like the melody in my head. I'm like, oh, you know, it does kind of feel very Incubus-esque, you know, and I like that because they're, you know, underrated alt band. But Um, I did notice there was some tonal like screaming as well, which I really enjoyed too. I think that you do a great job of kind of like incorporating that, where it's like, okay, like I need a little bit more of a push, but I don't need quite a scream yet. And
Mm-hmm.
you know, I think that you hit that like great line of like, you know, as we mentioned earlier, I know like Sam from Architects does a really great job of that. I would
Yep.
also say Lucas from Holding Absences kind of got, I would say he's strived away from it more currently, but with, you know, Greatest Mistake of My Life, but like their self-title and stuff, he does have that kind of like tonal like scream sing kind of thing that I love when bands do. I know people get tired of that shit, but I I really enjoy it because
I prefer it over screaming, to be honest. Me
yeah, I
personally.
think even so, like I think kind of like similarly to like the, you know, Town Where Only I Am Missing, like even with that sort of stuff where it's like you can evoke so much more emotion with like the tonal
Yeah.
scream as opposed to like just a full on scream, because like obviously you can have like just, you know, you can have a scream and it can kind of hit, but just where it's very melodic but still has that like grit and tonality to it, oh,
Yeah.
love it, great. um in regards to the demo of this song or the pre-pro, did this kind of relatively stay the same? Because I feel like much like some of the other songs, I feel like this one may have gone through some changes.
Thinking back, um, I'm trying to remember. I'm thinking the verses and the chorus, the structure did changed a lot,
Okay.
but the verses, like the like that, yeah, like that whole like lead portion, that was the same. And
Okay.
I think that's what really drew me to this song, was loving that part, and then seeing it like come together with a much better production vision.
Sure, sure.
um it was awesome. So like I would say like, yeah, structure changed, but like a lot of the core parts stayed the same.
Nice, nice. And then in regards to, because I know you said you enjoyed playing this one live, are there any songs off this record that you haven't played live? And to follow that up, is there one that you would want to play live that you haven't done yet?
I think we played every song live at least once.
Okay. Very
um
cool.
yeah, because we were playing the same songs over and over again, because we base it off of like, what are people listening to, and like thankfully we
Sure,
have
sure, sure.
a large amount of people still listening to some of the stuff on the EP, like some, like Persona's the most popular, and then like we got Hazel Eyes and Grand Tree from the EP, much more popular than the rest of
Yeah.
this record. Which, I mean, I like those songs, and so we'll play a lot of those tracks, then we'll pepper in some other songs, and then we were like, okay, we had never played this track, we never played this track, we never played this track. Let's do one set where we play a lot of the oddballs, and it was fun. Um, but yeah, so we have, I guess honestly the only songs we've never played, um, have been Earthbound from the last from the EP, which is like the
Wow.
heavier one,
Yeah.
and Sentiment and which were his first two singles. We never played
Wow.
any of those songs. Yeah.
Wow. Would you want to play any of those?
I think so. I mean, the thing is, it's like I want people to enjoy it. Like I enjoy it, and I guess that's like, you know, you want to play for as the musician, but
Yeah,
also
yeah.
you want to make sure like the people that are supporting you also get to listen, hear what they want to see. So, um, I would like to play them at some point. We've talked about it because it would be fun. Like maybe even like potentially like re-recording them or something, because they're very dated.
Sure, sure, sure. That'd be very cool. I would come out for that 100%. But yes, Dark Room. Lyrically, what were you drawing from this song?
So this song's one of those, similar to like I wrote when I don't know if you're familiar with Pandora's Box. It's like the song between the EP and Now. We had a single back in 2018.
Yeah, 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 yeah. I'm
Um,
familiar.
so I wrote that song similar to this one. It was about a friend and their like issue, like kind of a toxic situation with their significant other, very close friend at the time. So it was like, um, seeing them go through a lot of turmoil and stuff, about their situation for their relationship, and how it spiraled and affected everyone in their life. So it was like that was the focus of that song, and it was a different approach, because it's like typically I write about myself. So I like doing that too. I like taking different approaches. So yeah, that's what this song was about.
And I also like when bands, especially if it's someone that's close to them and they are able to write in a way that like you can see it from like an outsider's perspective and like looking in on the situation. I think that's always a really interesting like way to write, and I think it's like, you know, very creative in that aspect where you're like, okay, obviously you don't know everything about the situation, but I think that, you know, and you could take liberties in that aspect, but I like that there's this like kind of third person perspective on, you know, situations within people's lives. You know, obviously we're not trying to like go under a microscope, but I do like the fact that there is some sort of like relationship to having those two things together. So definitely wanted to highlight this song. Love it. This one, again, I think this one is definitely amongst my honorable mentions. Like, it's very close. I think kind of similarly to you, like, songs can kind of interchange, but, like, because there are certain songs that I'm like, oh, okay, this one, because I'm listening through to this, obviously, with you as well, and I'm like, it makes you kind of think, like, and I'm not even, like, the vocalist of the band, so, like, it makes me think, like, man, I actually really fucking like that song. Man, now I'm like, now it's going to throw me off that I actually enjoy this one. So, I think this is very much close to amongst my favorite. But we're going to move it on to track number 8, which is Cherish Your Friends. This is a JJ favorite. So get ready, guys, to listen to it in 3, 2, 1.
It's like I'm on the sidelines and we never win. So hopeless again. Give me a reason to never quit. Cherish your friends or give them up. I can live my life like this. I'll dig my grave while you're sleeping in. Heart pounding, mind racing, I'm drowning, time wasted. Can I be happy for the weekend? Maybe I'll just lose a friend or do this all over again. Failure and destroy. Look the place and say a move as we're feeling lost. I see the snowfall, afraid of death and afraid to answer the phone call. It's like everything could never fix it all. Will I pay the cost? I can't live my life like this. I'll take my grave while you sleep in it. Life after death isn't everything. Deep in the ground, am I ever sad? I wait for the day when my apathy fades away. It feels like nothing ever changes. Your wishful thinking while you keep sinking. And if I lose myself, maybe I'll live through this hell. I see the snowfall, afraid of death and afraid to answer the phone call. With no control as I'm losing will it break you? I see the sun fall, afraid of death and afraid to answer that phone call. With no control as I'm losing hope. I see the sun fall, afraid of death and afraid to answer that phone call. It's like everything could never fix it all.
Guys, that was track number 8, Cherish Your Friends, off of I Won't Find Hope in You, Wither Away's 2021 effort. This one is amongst my favorite. I would agree with JJ on that. I would argue is one of the best songs off of the record, and also a song that I recommend to people who are not familiar with this band at all. I would say this one, and like I said, the title track, I Won't Find Hope in You, I think give the most comprehensive idea of what I feel like this album encompasses. I just love that you guys have just a way of incorporating like the cleans and the screams together. I feel like this one just has, arguably more so than I Won't Find Hope in You, this one feels like a lot more emotional. Like there's just a lot, like even in regards to kind of like some of the screaming, it feels very like, and this is gonna sound terrible, but it does feel like unpolished, but like in the best way unpolished, where it's like there's just this level of like honesty and like emotional draw that this song has, that I'm like, oh shit, like this is like there's a strong emotion attached to this song. And so I like the fact that it's not 100% like perfect, and I think that's what makes the song really great to me. And then just the fact that there's just beautiful melodicness to it, but also is like like I would argue it's like amongst one of the heavier songs on the record, you know. So I like that you guys find that balance of those things. Why do you feel like this is amongst your favorite? Because I imagine you might have different reasons than I do for loving this song.
So instrumentally, I love it. Kind of plays, so it kind of hits all the check boxes when I'm thinking about like when I want to hear a song. I love what the song's about. Obviously, we're going to get into that then, but like I really resonated with that. And then also, one of the things that I would say, it's not a negative, but like when you say it's not perfect, that is literally like to me the perfect vocals that I'm trying to go for.
Yeah.
The only time I hit those vocals, and if you listen to the EP, there's a lot of those in the EP, and I feel like sometimes on some scream parts on this record, I was like not hitting that same level of driving the emotion. I think it's because this song resonated so well with me, like the meaning and such.
Mm-hmm.
So I love the screaming. I love the melodies that decided to go with, and like the overall like the meaning. So it felt good. Now, performance wise, it is a very challenging song.
Yeah, I can imagine.
So, it is very challenging. So like positioning it in the set is where I have to be very strategic, because I want to go all out. I want to give like the same level, but I also don't want to ruin the rest of the songs. So making compromises there. But yeah, I love this song. It's a great song.
Yeah, I agree. Like, I did find a lot of correlation to some of the previous work that you've put out, where it's like, where you said in like the EP, where the song, like the screaming isn't perfect, and I think that's why I think that this one hits me more so, and I would imagine a lot of people really enjoy this song, just because the level of honesty that it resides within the song. I would argue that there is, like, I feel like a lot of the time with the artists, especially nowadays, it's very like, I have to make sure this is perfect, right? And there's nothing wrong with that, certainly. I love it, but it's very rare when there's a band that is trying to do it and it's like, okay, this isn't 100% perfect, but does it still convey that emotion? Does it still convey that like fortitude that this song deserves, right? um and I think that's more important to me, rather than if the song is like, tuned in melodyne or whatever, and that's not to argue that those are bad things either, but I love the honesty of it. I love the way that the songs are crafted. I think that's what really I think that's what's really highlighted there. And so, I want to give you kudos and the rest of Wither Away for that, because I think that for you to make the creative choice of being like, okay, well, we're going to try to do something different, and we're going to try to keep it as honest as possible. Songs like this really stand out that much more so, at least from my stance, where, I could say, like, listen to this song. Like, you want to hear a song that, like, is emotionally and, like, probably lyrically heavy, then this is the perfect route. And then that kind of leads me into the next segue, JJ, in regards to the lyrics. I kind of have an idea of where it's coming from, but obviously you can speak on it better so than I can. So
Yeah, so lyrically, I think, like, because this is something that, like, I don't think I'll ever overcome from a struggling, like, perspective, but, like, it's basically like the constant worrying about everyone else, and, like, to the point where you're not caring about yourself. And
yeah, yeah.
yeah. So it's like, I'm constantly, so stressed about, like, and stress kills people. Like, stress
Yes,
kills
it
you all
does.
the time. So, like, having anxiety about, like, my family, like, what if, like, someone just doesn't wake up, or my wife, if she gets in a car accident and things like that. It's like, it's just like the living your life like that isn't living. So that was kind of like, that's like the whole premise for it. And it's like understanding that I don't have control over that, and, like, stressing and anxiety isn't something that is not helpful to the situation.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I really like, that's like something that I do feel very, like, I still feel on a daily basis. So when this song, I'll go back and listen to it, and I'm like, oh yeah, I still feel that way. I still love this song. And that's like the emotion that comes from it. Like, that's where a lot of that comes from. Like, when you're screaming that way. And the thing is like, a lot of the bands that I've listened to that scream like this are a lot of hardcore bands that do, like, the yell screaming.
Yeah.
It's like, and, like, Architects is one of them. But I feel like there's just, like, when it sounds like that, there's just so much emotion. It literally sounds like someone is screaming. Because, like, I sometimes get away. I don't like to go into that realm of, like, where it sounds so finely done, where it's like, it is an art, but sometimes I get, like, lost in it. I'm like, okay, this person's screaming, but, like, are they upset? Are they actually portraying the emotion that they're screaming about?
Sure. Yeah. No, I could totally resonate with that. And, like, that, like I said, I think this is why this is amongst my favorites off the record, just because there is that emotional fortitude that is provided. Like, you can hear it, like some of the cracks in, like, the screaming, and, like, there's flaws, and I think that's what makes it so endearing, because, like, I can certainly feel the same way. I could argue a lot of my friends probably think the same shit about me, where they're like, you just think way too much about other people and then don't give enough of a shit about yourself. And I think that that's why this song hits very close to home for me, because obviously I run a YouTube channel where I try to highlight all of my friends and try to do that. And it's just like, I don't feel anxious in that aspect of, like, obviously, knock on wood, I hope they don't die tomorrow, but, like, I'm not, like, at their, like, I'm not just like, oh my God, like, I don't know what's going to happen to them. But, like, I will say, like, I do kind of, I'm like, oh man, like, if that band breaks up, like, I'm like, that sucks. Like, I like, and then I go check on them, so I do find that this song just resonates with me, where, like, even the line where you're like, when you start off the song and you're like, cherish your friends or give them up, like, I was just like, oh, like, I had felt that, like, in my chest when I first listened to it, and every time that I do listen to it, just, like, that hurts, like, that, like, because you're so like, you're so worried about your friends in that aspect that they might not even care on that level, but you do, and it's just like that eats away at you. So
Yeah.
I happen to find a lot of commonality with this song, so I think that this one is amongst my favorite as well. In terms of the in terms of the pre-pro for this, JJ, did this roughly remain the same? I'd imagine. I guess.
Yeah, it was similar to the last, where it was a lot of the melodies and the leads were very like not. I would okay. So, back when we were doing this, like, and I kind of mentioned to you before, it's like finding a vocal take that I really wanted to do.
Sure.
Really like something that I like. I'd come up with ideas, but it was never putting onto a pre-pro. So a lot of it was instrumentally. Instrumentally, this song was pretty similar, but it changed from the structure later down the road.
Gotcha. And then in regards to, I know you mentioned this earlier, like with track number 5, the town where I'm only, the only. Sorry, I'm completely.
No,
butchering.
you're good.
The town where only I'm missing. You said that that was the first song. Like, what, amongst how the songs were kind of like arranged and put together, like what timeline in terms of when this song and I guess some of the other songs were kind of like put together. Is this one
Second
of
to last?
This was one of the older one, newer ones.
Yeah, newer ones. Yeah, this was second to last.
Wow, awesome. That's
Yeah.
that's really crazy. And then among some of the other songs, so like the town where only I'm missing is the first one, and then some of the other ones kind of like just made its way through amongst that, and then like cherish your friends and wow.
So we got rid of I can give you a timeline if I can remember it. Got rid of 2 and 3. The songs we wiped out pretty early on, actually.
Oh wow. Okay.
And then Shadow Form, Kagune, Dark Room. Wait. Shadow Form, Kagune. Sorry, I'm trying to remember. I have numbers, because like before we name the songs, they're all numbered.
Oh wow. Okay.
I think 6 was April, and then 7 was Dark Room, and
Ooh.
then 8 was. I'm trying to remember. Actually, I think I might be off by 1. Regardless, it was. I could probably pull it up here, but yeah,
it's okay.
It was an interesting production timeline, and where like some of the pre-pros were round from the very start, but they didn't get. We went off of what we thought was our favorite at the beginning, and it just got better each time. So
I would argue, especially considering "Cherish Your Friends" were one of the last ones. I mean,
yeah,
that one's a peak track, so really love that one. Guys, we're gonna move it into track number 9, which is "Stigmatized." Very excited about this one. If you are into the heavier stuff, then I'd argue this might be the song for you. So we're gonna count it in 3, 2, 1.
Infatuated with the world, preaching mental health, ignoring shattered hopes. I need control, so if I cry, then nobody has to know. Suicide, could I let my family down? Down are my hours now that I've been working less. Am I blessed to keep myself repressed? I feel the stigma deep inside my yellow chest. You only care cause it makes you look caring. You look like everyone is staring. You mirror disguise, and it's all you see through. Follow this road we made from a world we never knew. You mirror disguise, and now it's fooling you. No one's right and nothing's true. Broken. tried so hard, but you could never see how you could burn a house with apathy. I'll fake my death so I don't have to bleed. Dead to me, dead to me. I tried so hard, but you could never see how you could burn a house with apathy. I'll fake my death so I don't have to bleed. You're dead to me. You're dead to me.
All right, guys, that was track number 9 called Stigmatized, and that was off of I Won't Find Hope in You by Wither Away. We are with JJ again. Obviously, if you've been watching on the live stream, thanks for watching. I know this is been a long one, but very exciting. This one is arguably the heaviest song on the record. I don't think there's any question about it. Lyrically, what are you delving into? Because I feel like, I think a lot of the stuff, is very lyrically heavy. And I would imagine this one is also a pretty heavy topic if I had to imagine.
Yeah, so when I was writing this one, what I felt kind of real inspired to talk about was more so something that I think gets like ignored a lot, which like some people. I mean, it's not. I mean, not trying to be corny or anything, but I guess that's kind of even me saying that's a problem. But like, about like men's mental health and like, the struggle with like, kind of like talking about your emotions, talking about like there's a reason that like men commit suicide on a much higher basis, because they don't talk about it, and like that's kind of like this is another one of those. This is one of those like unique premises of the record where, I'm writing about situation that I mean, granted, I have mental health like issues of my own, but like I'm pretty vocal about it, obviously. But like people that aren't, that are struggling in silence and such, this is kind of like for them to talk about that and stigmatized and is kind of like the name of the title because I think there's a stigma behind it, where I don't know why, and I'm hoping that as time progresses that we move away from that, where we're just like, it's okay to talk about your emotions, it's okay to cry. It's like, and that's like the whole focus on it. The heavy aspect of it too, like I really enjoyed. I love doing a heavy song on every record. It's always very fun.
I think even like I love a lot of the screaming in this song. Like I enjoy like some of like the lows, especially. I would argue in possibly like the second verse or like maybe the second pre-chorus or something like that, where it just gets like real, like almost a little like borderline a little guttural kind of, and I think that's really tight because like up until this point they're really like, I mean, there's been screaming but not to that level, like, and so I do like that there is kind of a switch up in that aspect, and I do agree like there is this stigma behind like men's mental health, and I, much like you, I feel like I'm pretty vocal about my mental struggles. Like I even made a video last year about like how I needed to take time off because I was just like being run into the ground, because not only does YouTube deem that you need to keep putting videos out, but like I almost felt like in certain aspects that I was letting my fan base down by not having videos out or not talking about this or whatever. And I think that it kind of, again, reaches a broader range of things where, like you said, people don't talk about it. They kind of keep it more bottled up. And unfortunately that, unfortunately that's something that involves, possibly killing yourself or something like that. And I hope that, people get over the ideology that like mental health or like mental awareness is something that is not like that should be for everybody. I think everybody needs to take a look at themselves and be like, listen, if I'm actually struggling, like, I need to be able to talk about it. And even if it, obviously I would hope that people go to a therapist, but that's, I understand that that might not always be the case. So I'll leave what I've been saying usually when this sort of topic comes up is like, feel free to DM me on any social media. Like, I feel like if anything, I want to be there to listen. People think like, oh, well, are you going to answer me or whatever? And I want to be able to be there for people who need it, So if you are struggling with something, certainly, please enter the DM. I would love to, be able to talk you, I wouldn't be able to talk you through it certainly, but like, I think if anything, it's like at least a listening ear. And I think that sometimes like that's maybe the thing that you might need, so, I feel like I want to open up my DMs to do that. So if you do feel that way, don't feel obligated to do it. But if you do feel like the need to reach out, then absolutely do so. Like, I want to be able to be reached. So, but I'm glad you wrote a song about this, JJ, because I think that I think we're getting into that ideology that like mental health is important, regardless if you're like, a man or woman or, non-binary or a trans person. Like, I think everybody needs to have that sort of mental fortitude to be like, listen, like whatever you deal with, like somebody can help you out with, if as long as you open yourself up and allow yourself to want to be able to, go about that change. So I do appreciate that a lot, as one person to another person.
Yeah. No, it was I think we are progressing in the right direction. I agree. I think there's still like, there's still a large amount of like people that just don't even want to talk to their friends about it. There's people that just like, where it's like, I mean, you might feel the same way. It's like, well, your outlet and my outlet also growing up to expressing emotion wasn't talking to friends and family. It was writing it in poetry.
Yeah.
And like, I don't necessarily say that's natural. I mean, like, I'm not saying that's wrong or anything, but it's like, it was hard to talk to someone about your weakness because
Sure.
You're not weaknesses, your depression or your mental health, because you looked at it as weakness. And I think that's the big kicker there. So, but yeah, that was it was a fun song to work on, but like, yeah, it definitely had a heavy topic.
Yeah, and I think it works well with like the ultimate, with it being a heavier song. Like I think the concepts hit a little bit harder because they are more, aggressive, and I appreciated that the take on that, where it's like, okay, yeah, this is a heavy song, this is about a heavy topic, like you need to, like, this might be some sort of, hopefully a wake-up call to be like less fearful of getting the help that you should and want to get, so I like this song a lot. In regards to kind of the structure or the way that the songs were written, did this change a lot? Like, I know lyrically that's kind of like the tail end of things mostly from what I could gather here, but like musically, was that pretty much, did you guys just want to do like a really just heavy track? Or
Yeah, I mean, so in my opinion, it still didn't itch that heaviness vibe that I'm going for. I want, and like I still am in desire of this, so like future stuff may have this. I want like a shock value song, because like before Wither Away, I was just in a strictly screaming band. Like I just screamed the whole time. It's all like lows and stuff, and I want to have that here and there. I just like the idea of being like, oh, we can release this song, but we can also do this song.
Sure.
Yeah, so like it sorry if I didn't answer the question right, but it was like when we wrote it, it was probably a little bit heavier. It did kind of transform a little bit more when we put it on the record.
Sure.
So, it, like I said, still didn't get that full itch. So hopefully sooner or later we'll have something a little bit heavier.
Ooh, all right. Well, I'll be keeping my eyes peeled. I do feel like, again, topically it was heavy, and then I think musically it was also heavy. So I think
there's a lot of motion to it. Yeah.
There was a lot of scratching of certain itches. So I feel like for me, I really enjoyed this one a lot. I always like. I don't know if I like brush it over because I know it's like a heavy song and I know it's coming out, but I think like just kind of having, again, very similarly to like Dark Room, like I think songs that have like more of a lyrical presence where I'm like, okay, I can relate a lot more to this now, I think was really cool. So really enjoyed that one. But we're gonna get into the last track number 10, Your Name. I'll figure out what I feel like I'm gonna say with this song, but we'll get into it in 3, 2, 1.
Am I living my life right? Feels like every day repeats and repeats, yeah. I'm gonna find a way. I'm gonna start today. I'm gonna wither away.
I like that lyrical notation.
A train of thought that told me that I'm good enough. I'm not who I wanna be yet. I'm not strong like my pain. A reminder of the past. A picture that you wish could last. I'm gonna forfeit my nostalgia. But first for future, first for future, first for future. Oh, I'm not falling out. I'm running out. So many doubts. I wish I didn't look down. Just save yourself before you hit the ground. I can feel the energy building up all around me. I can feel the energy. I can feel the energy. So don't lose hope in me. Losing everything for the dopamine. Everything in front of me is a crisis, and now my head stays trapped in these vices. And no house time. Look at everything I had. I don't wanna be alone. I don't wanna be alone. I'm not falling out. I'm running out. So many doubts. I wish I didn't look down. Just save yourself before you hit the ground. I can feel the energy building up all around me. I can feel the energy. 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 I don't wanna be me anymore. I don't wanna be me anymore. Where we once were means nothing if I can't move on. Is this living life? Am I doing fine? Feels like every day repeats and repeats, yeah. I'm gonna find a way. I'm gonna start today. I'm gonna wither away. I try to break it up, a train of thought that told me that I'm good enough. But am I good enough? But am I good enough?
All right, guys, that was the final track off of Wither Away's newest record, I Won't Find Hope in You, called Your Name. kind of feels a little bittersweet to be at the end of the line. You know, certainly I have a lot of fond memories of this record, and I hope you guys enjoyed it. Again, you can pick it up in the description. Go buy it, please, or go stream it on Spotify a ton, and make sure to follow them on Spotify. But yeah, this one I think obviously appropriately named after, I would assume, your name, like the anime. I'm gonna guess.
Yeah.
That's what I believe. I'm glad I was on the nose on that one. You know, my anime points are through the roof right now. I would argue this is amongst my favorites. I would say, right, I think the town where I am the only one missing, I would probably put Your Name as a second. I'd probably put April 3rd. Cherish Your Friends, and I would put the title track, I Won't Find Hope in You. Honorable mention, Dark Room. That would be kind of the list. Either that, I think Dark Room and Stigmatized are the ones that I'm flip-flopping on as an honorable mention.
Because it's like a completely different list, like from person to person, which I guess is a really good thing.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah, like, and that's like, we're like it's in the beginning, we're seeing kind of like a second wave of like listeners coming in, and just based off of like someone listens to it and then they save it and they show their friend, and like the algorithm is doing its job where it's putting it in people's face, so which is great. But I really enjoyed doing this song. It's weird because like there's some things that we did in this song that were like, and you probably obviously know right off the bat, like the whole like middle like bridge, like the
yeah, that's great. I love that.
It was like, I liked it,
Yeah.
and it was a controversial thing in the like the band's like, oh, we've never done something like that, like, and
I love it. It's great.
I like it too, and it's grown on me. And that song, like, we played it live a few months back, and it was a lot of fun. And I think that's Russell's favorite song, I believe.
I wouldn't be surprised. Yeah, he's got some great drumming in this track. Shouts to Russell.
Yeah.
Love that dude.
Yeah, dude. And that like, it just has like a pop punk vibe, which we don't really typically go into. But it, like, I don't know, I just love the way it ends for the ending of like the album.
Oh,
it just feels
yeah.
right.
Yeah, it does.
Like,
I think
it's a
it
good track.
honestly is, and I don't know if this is intentional or not, and I didn't mean to cut you off, JJ, but like,
no worries.
I feel like for me, it perfectly transitions into April. Like, you know how like April is very like melodic and like very like ethereal and stuff, and I feel like the ending of Your Name is very melodic and ethereal. So it just kind of like, it's the perfect bleed into April, I would argue.
I mean, I can see it. I can hear it now. Like, that's the thing is, it's like, yeah, no, it would go well. It would go well with it.
I know because I have listened. I've put it on repeat and listened to it. You know.
Well, that's what I say. Like, maybe we intend to do that so they re-listen to it again.
It is. 100%. You know, it's a banger from front to back, I'd argue. Andreas said, I've been listening to you guys since 2016. Much love. Much love to you, Andreas. That's great.
Dude,
I mean,
appreciate it,
very,
man.
very cool. So big shout outs to Andreas. But I like this. This song, I think, encapsulates your sound too. Even though, like, I think it is a little bit of a divergence in terms of like what typically people imagine Wither Away to be. I still think, like you said, there are definitely elements of Wither Away that are included in this song that I think that really work with your sound. And obviously, I don't know if this was just kind of like a song, like we're just gonna do this and see how it goes. But I mean, I feel like I love the tempo of it. I love the energy of it. It definitely feels like one of those songs that when you see it live is just explodes with energy, you know. I like the fact that you guys included your band name in the song. I thought that was a little cheeky, you know. I don't know if it was intentional or not, but I certainly liked it as just kind of an homage to be like, okay, this is our band name. Now it's in a song, you know, like kind of like that. So
it's funny. Yeah, like I put it in there, like kind of just like a, hey, like it just was fun. I mean, like, it's funny because like some members of the band are like, oh, that's corny. But everyone I talk to is like, they like it. So I'm like, I don't know. It was fun. It was fun to do that. And it felt good.
I could see where it could be like cheese ball, but at the same time, I'm like, not too many bands really do that. So like, I respect it, especially because I think it works, with the way that the lyrics kind of were put out.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's a bad thing. So I don't know who said it, but I don't know. I want to make a band argument out of it, but I liked it. So
They're wrong.
They're wrong. You're like, you have the wrong opinion, but it's okay to be wrong. I guess JJ, in regards to the lyrics, where does this stem from? Much like the questions I've been asking you for the past couple hours.
Takes you full circle back almost to April, basically. Am I living my life right? Like, kind of, doing the same thing every single day. Just, if you can hear my cat, I'm sorry. He's
It's all
just
right.
yelling at the door. And he's doing the zoomies back and forth.
Oh,
around the
yeah.
house. But basically, it's like just playing back to like just do. I mean, and it makes sense because like when we were in COVID, like we were doing the same thing over and over again.
Oh yeah.
And like we're still trying to break those bad habits today. Like there's some bad habits that I'm just like I've gotten used to and I'm comfortable with, but I'm not happy with. And that's kind of what this song is like, reflecting on yourself and reflecting on. It sounds so like that's what the album's about. So I guess it fits. But it's like being like, is this how I'm going to live my rest of my life until I die? Like, am I ever gonna hit a point in my life where I'm just like, I'm older and I'm happy and mature? You know what I mean? Like you see like older people, like I think about this regularly. You see like people that are like, I don't want to say this like in an insensitive way, but like they're in the realm of like a statistical death at that age, and they're just so happy.
Sure. Yeah.
And you're like, if I'm at that age, am I gonna be thinking like I could die at any moment? Like I could not wake up the next day, and like that. We're having those thoughts now. Those thoughts just go away at some point, and that's kind of what this song is about more so.
I don't know. I kind of agree with you in that aspect, and I had thought like that for a while, and I think, honestly, COVID definitely flipped that for me, where I was just like, every day is kind of like this moment to change your life, And I know it sounds cliche as fuck, but like, it really is true. Like, where you have a chance to do something different every day. And you can choose to do the same shit every single day, or you can choose to do something where you enjoy it. Like that kind of gave me a second wind on doing the channel. Like, I'm not saying that I ever felt like I was going to quit the channel, but I think it gives me that energy to be like, listen, they're like, and even like comments, like even if I get like a shitty comment and somebody says you should stop doing this, and I'm just like, okay, cool, nice. But then I'll also get comments where people are like, oh, I like just found out about your channel. I really love what you do. You seem really like integrated with the scene, and you really care about like the artists that you have on, and I think that really means a lot more. And nice comments.
You always focus on the negative one,
but you always always focus on the people that like hate your guts. But I think that now that obviously we've been through the pandemic, and then just kind of having like a more of a mental like relapse in like the best way possible of like at these doing these things, like interviewing bands, like I interviewed, I'm trying to think how many bands in a row I've done this past week. Probably like 6 or 7, something like that.
Oh, wow.
And back like every single day of this week, pretty much for the most of last week, I would argue. And I would imagine most people would be like, that must be like draining, right? And sometimes it is, I'm not gonna say there's some days where I'm cool and there's some days where I'm not. But I think for me, it's like, I wouldn't be in the position of doing this without bands like yours or like other bands that I have on, and I want to give a lot of respect to the people that spend the time to write music and take the time to write stuff that's from the heart, and that's very very personable to them. I think at the very least, as not only just like somebody who is a appreciator of music, I want them to know like they're appreciated for their art, because we always talk about like these grandiose things of people who like are like movie stars, and they're like doing this, or like they're like music's not this big thing, right? Like, but I think in reality, like, our lives wouldn't be half as good as they are if they weren't with music, you know, and at least from my perspective, you know.
Yeah.
And so I think I have to give the credit to not only your band for as much as I love this record, you know. I also think you got to give a lot of credit to the bands that like influenced you, right? Where you're
Oh
like,
yeah,
oh
definitely.
shit, like I wouldn't be doing this if I didn't have the Used or I didn't have this band. And so I've tried to give as much credit as credit is due. And so again, I appreciate JJ for coming on and really going through all these songs because I think it gives a better idea to the listener. And I always love it because I'm a music nerd, so I love it. And then in regards to the song itself, did it roughly remain the same in regards to like the pre-pro and stuff?
It changed drastically.
Wow.
So
Okay.
last song of the track, just when you get to the last song of the track, you're just kind of like, let's just do whatever we want. And I mean, especially when you're doing like 10 plus songs, so you're like,
sure, yeah.
But it was fun. The thing is, it went the fastest though. When I came in to do vocals, the quickest. And it wasn't like I was just, it wasn't like I was just like oh yeah, that's good, oh yeah, okay, we can move on. Like it was like the takes, we were getting good takes, and it was fun. So
I love
it
that.
did change a lot.
I'm sure it did. I always make this running joke on this on these videos of like I would love to hear like the pre-production versions of some of these songs because like for me it's like I probably will never see them, but like it would be interesting to see kind of the comparison of like what ends up on the record and what didn't. So but again, JJ, much appreciated for coming on the channel, talking about each song in depth. Always love doing these. And I'll leave the floor to you. Tell the people where they can find Wither Away at, what you guys have coming up soon, and anything else you would like to plug about the band while you're on here.
Yeah, so witheraway.com is it's gonna change a lot soon. Sign up for the mailing list because that's gonna be utilized for a lot of stuff in the future. I know we got a bunch of people already signed up for it. We do have merch still. We may be running something special to if you haven't gotten your hands on merch in the near future. Yeah. So yeah, no, we might be running some kind of special deal moving forward here shortly. Because we still have a lot from the last record. Well, not the last record, but like the most recent one. We potentially may have some different versions of tracks coming out in the near future, which is fun, and possibly some singles, so definitely stay tuned.
Awesome. Well, listen, I'm going to go through one last shill thing first. Well, two last shill things. The first shill thing is I don't know who I have to ask or beg, but I would love to have a Wither Away vinyl. So I don't know who does that, but please, I would love to have that in my collection.
It's on like the list, and there's possible mock-ups of stuff. So it is definitely, I mean, like it is definitely a possible thing coming out. So
very cool. Yes.
When we decide on it and when we are like finalized, because like there's so much that we're working on right now, which is great because like 4 years of nothing to the record. Like we're very active. We have like a second wind of motivation, which is great. Like kind of similar to what you're doing. Like we're trying to do as much as we possibly can, and do it right this time. So like make it valuable to our fans. So there's a lot of stuff we're putting together, and a lot of cool stuff that we're very happy with. So and that be merch, that be new music. It will come, and the vinyl is definitely on that list. Maybe I'll send you something later.
Great. I love it. I love to hear that. I feel like I don't get to show about that too. Well, I do actually. That's a lie. I do show about vinyls all the time. But I would love to just put it on a video and have it be realized in that. But the second shill thing, again, if you watch this whole thing and you still have not thought, man, I should check Wither Away out, you should definitely do it. They're like one of the more underrated bands within the Pennsylvania scene, and honestly a band that should be on the radar because they're fantastic. And if anything, if you spent this entire time listening to this record, these songs are great. So go check the links in the description to go find out about it. Go buy it on CD. Go buy some merch. Go follow them on Spotify so you can keep up to date with it. Go subscribe to their mailing list. I'm sure that they will be releasing some stuff very soon, so keep your eyes peeled. And if you enjoy this content, make sure to share, like, subscribe. It goes a long way. I feel like an old person for asking for that, but I'm going to continue to ask for it until, I'm like, at 1 million subs or something. But I want to really thank JJ for coming on and hanging out. Also, my cat walked in, ironically enough. Come here. Come here, Repo. We'll say goodbye. We'll say goodbye together. All right? Ready? Say goodbye. Okay.
Take care, buddy.
Bye.
Thanks for having me, man. Appreciate it.
Oh, man. We're going to end the stream. Oh, he left.